Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, March 26th board meeting of the Town of Newcastle. The board has been in executive session discussing appointments to committees and consulting with and getting legal advice from the town attorney. May I have a motion to close the exec session and open the work session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so today I want to start by welcoming Kelly Branco from our EPIC committee. Every person is included is what EPIC stands for. And Kelly is going to give us a presentation on the Anderson Center for Autism and an initiative to foster a neurodiversity-friendly community to enhance understanding and better interactions with individuals with special needs and promote autism awareness and inclusion. So welcome, Kelly,
Thank you.
and I'll give you the floor. Go ahead.
Sure. Well, thank you all for having me here. I very much appreciate you giving me this time to share my experience and the initiative that we've been discussing as the EPIC committee and further. I'd like to start with just a little bit of information about myself and how I'm tied to autism. And I shared this past week at the Yes She Can annual benefit, which was honoring myself and two other individuals for the work that we've done in the autism community. So I was very fortunate to be one of those honorees, and I thought that what I shared was very impactful, and hoping the same is true here. So my younger brother Danny was diagnosed with autism when I was about 5 years old. So my family has been a part of the autism community for nearly my entire life. I have always known that people have differing ways of seeing the world, and that it is important to acknowledge and embrace that fact. Yet as I continue to go through life, I realized that many people, unfortunately, did not have the same empathetic perspective. While there have been times when the word autism has triggered a flurry of emotions, like when we received my daughter Maddie's diagnosis, I have learned that the best way to help make the world a more empathetic place for my brother and daughter was to take on the responsibility of educating as many people as I can about what autism means to me. In April of last year, I visited the 2nd through 4th grade classes in the Chapakua School District and spoke about autism awareness. I shared a video of my brother discussing what autism means to him and how to be a good friend to someone who may be different from you, followed by a Q&A with myself and the students, which 2nd through 4th, you can imagine the questions were all over the place, but very much welcome. Hearing the children share their interest in learning more about those with autism was such a fulfilling experience. I knew I had to do more to spread awareness at a young age. I soon after began writing My Sister Maddie, which I'd like to leave here for you, and Maddie and her siblings signed for you, which offers a light introduction to neurodiversity from the perspective of a loving sibling. I hope the book is shared in schools and in the community to make other children more aware of neurodivergent individuals at a young age and show children it is okay to ask questions. Asking questions just shows you care, yet as adults, I think we can let the concern over saying the right thing overwhelm the good intention of wanting to be a good friend to someone. I want children to ask how Maddie's speech development is going. I want her to be invited to parties, even if she can only stay 20 minutes because she gets overwhelmed by the noise. I want other moms to lean on me as a friend without worrying I will compare their struggles to ours. We should not be in competition as parents and should have compassion for the mom who is concerned that their child skips a number counting to 10 as much as the mom who is concerned their child hasn't yet said I love you at 5 years old. All of our feelings are valid and coming from a place of wanting the best for our children. I hope by beginning the conversation about neurodiversity at a young age through our book, My Sister Maddie, makes the next generation more comfortable learning about and empathizing with my brother Danny and my daughter Maddie. So that gives you a bit of perspective personally as to why I think this is such an important initiative. And I've shared in advance some information which you may or may not be aware of, but I think that a Harvard article that was written had a really interesting quote, which I think resonates really well. It's neurodiversity describes the idea that people experience and interact with the world around them in many different ways, and there is no right way of thinking, learning, and behaving, and differences are not viewed as deficits. And I think that's really, really important. And while that's typically referred to in the autism world or with individuals with ADHD, it's important to acknowledge we all have unique ways of processing information, which impacts the way we learn at school, at work, at home, and in the community. Autism specifically is often referred to as the spectrum, as those with an autism diagnosis may present their unique challenges in varying ways and to varying degrees. The typical consistent challenge surrounds interaction with those in the community, whether it be communication or behavior, which is why it is so important for an individual with an autism diagnosis to feel support from the community so they may truly integrate and feel the same benefit as their neurotypical peers from birth through adulthood. As a community, we have been very focused on autism awareness and inclusion in the school district, and we want to similarly engage the community to be as aware and inclusive as possible outside of the school setting. EPIC is a town organization whose mission is to improve the quality of life for people with special needs by increasing awareness and promoting full inclusion in the community. Many EPIC members are parents of children and adults with disabilities and are passionate about the community embracing this mission. Education is needed about interacting with those who have visible and invisible needs, which require greater supports than may be evident to the general community. Given the increase in autism diagnoses globally, this is something that will be even more relevant and necessary going forward for our community and others. Our neighbors in Bedford and Katona have implemented the Inclusive Initiative, making theirs the first neurodivergent supportive town in Westchester, and we would be thrilled to follow suit as this initiative expands throughout the county. The Anderson Center for Autism has worked with the Inclusive Initiative to offer training to local businesses, individuals, and first responders for those in the Bedford and Katona community, and we'd love to embrace a similar initiative.
Well, thank you so much. That is absolutely wonderful. I know that we've always been a community that values inclusion in our schools, focus on that a lot. Certainly a lot of people have moved to this district for that, and so the kids are supported in that way.
Right.
And it only makes sense to then follow through and support the adult community. And when I heard about this program, I was very intrigued, and it was described to me by another member of your committee, and I thought that it was a really good thing to bring to Chappaqua and the town of Newcastle. So thank you for being here. And at this point, I'd like to open things up to everyone else to see if there are questions about your program. I don't know if you want to get into it in more detail before we ask questions, but
Sure, I'm happy to. So there's multiple ways in which the training can be implemented. It can be virtual, which I think is kind of the way of the world for many people and probably the most flexible option for others. But there also are in-person options. And then there is an asynchronous online training program where individuals can take the training at their own speed. And there is a pre-assessment initial screening where individuals are asked certain questions about what they know about autism, etc. And then there is a post questionnaire with similar questions to assess what was developed and what was learned from the training. There are a variety of different ways in which businesses can be involved. The autism inclusive environment is, I'd say, the baseline level, which can be implemented at both the individual, the business, and first responder level. And I think that those are three very important areas which would make sense to offer to those in the community. For the first responders particularly, I think it would be really beneficial and helpful. And I'm sure there is some facet of training already involved to some degree, but my daughter doesn't really communicate verbally, for example. So if she were to wander off, not that she would ever, from school or from us, I would want a first responder to be able to understand that she's not being difficult. She just really cannot eloquently communicate what her needs are and what her address is, or any information that my 4 and 3-year-old maybe can a little bit better.
so how do you initiate your outreach, say, to businesses?
Sure. So I'd put together this one pager, and I'd love to share it with the businesses in the community, because I do think that a lot of local businesses specifically, they are parents of people in the community, and either their children have gone through the school district or are going through the school district. So they see the initiatives that are via the special education communities and through CPSE, CSE, et cetera, within the school district. So in order to tie that into the community, I think that would really tap into individuals who are running their businesses locally and have them become engaged. I also think the reference to the Inclusive Initiative in Bedford and Cantona is helpful because you can see that this has been implemented and really embraced in that community. So having that initial example, I think, is really helpful to show that it can happen and it can be a positive thing. And same thing for the first responders. I can share information. Our family's an open book, so I'm happy to even walk in myself and share information, whether it be via a flyer or even a conversation with those in the community, including the first responders, to understand the importance and how it would really positively benefit our children.
Do you think there are businesses in Cantona and Bedford who would be willing to speak to businesses in our town?
Absolutely. So I've reached out to the Inclusive Initiative in advance, and so once I have response from them, I'd love to ask for recommendations. And the Anderson Center has also offered to prepare a presentation to go into the specifics of the training a bit further so that we could better understand what would actually be offered.
This might be somewhere we can leverage partnership with the Chamber of Commerce
Okay.
as
Right.
well.
That was
Okay.
my,
Yeah.
That would be great. Absolutely.
What are the elements in the training? Like what exactly do people come away knowing or understanding better?
Sure. So I think it's a combination of picking up on those invisible traits that an individual with autism might predominantly display. So either a meltdown or nonverbal communication, things of that nature, avoidance of eye contact, just identifying that this isn't someone who's being rude or just having a temper tantrum necessarily. It could be someone who has an invisible quote unquote disability, and then being able to offer potentially there are different facets that can be incorporated where depending on the level of organization you are, you can have a sensory area in your business, and that can be something that can be offered to that individual to help them kind of calm themselves. Or also understanding that if you're probing someone with questions about can I help you, etc., that might trigger them to have some kind of behavioral reaction, and that might be because they may be autistic. And so even just knowing to kind of back off or maybe give the individual space, those are the type of things that are offered. And then from a first responder perspective, similar type of instance, and also just understanding the appropriate way to attempt to communicate with the individual and attempt to bring down their frustration level and anxiety level so that you can actually move forward with what you're trying to accomplish.
I don't know if I read this in something you had sent or somewhere else, but
Sure.
when businesses complete this training, do they have some kind of a sticker that they're able
Yes,
to put?
so you have a sticker in your window, and
Okay.
there's a couple of different organizations. Actually, Grit Ninja in Pleasantville has gone through the training through the Inclusive Initiative, so
Okay.
they're probably the most local to us, I would say, that's gone through the training.
Mhm.
And my daughter actually goes and attends the inclusive sessions they have on Sunday mornings, and has been doing that for the last couple of years. And I know that they've been very interested in being involved and helping support. So I think that's one of the businesses that would definitely be interested in coming here and speaking about their
So
experience.
you've personally seen the impact of the training
Yes.
on a local business.
Yes, so
Okay.
Grit Ninja, for example, that inclusive offering that they have is that now they have 2 sessions, used to just be 1, so it's kind of tough to get in, but once you're in, you see that it's basically the same kind of setup as a typical Grit Ninja class, which I think a lot of our kids have been involved with to some varying degree, something similar, but there is more one-on-one assistance. My daughter kind of likes to venture off and go to different obstacles, and everyone's doing another thing, and there's always someone that's following her and making sure she's doing something safely or trying to divert her back to being part of the group.
I just want to say thank you for being here. I have a cousin that is nonverbal and on the spectrum, and you might be able to relate since your brother. 20 years ago, the world was very different for neurodiverse children, and it made it very difficult for my other cousins and my aunt and uncle to be out in certain situations.
Mhm.
They got a lot of questions, some nasty looks. It wasn't always easy. So this is very near and dear to my heart. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. I mean, my brother's 34 and he's a big guy. He's 6'2", 280. He towers over at
That's how
me
my husband
and
is,
he
too.
can be behavioral sometimes and that can be really scary to other people to see this guy and not having any kind of context. Whereas my daughter, you might not notice at first because she's always smiling and she's just quiet and it seems like, oh, she just doesn't like to talk to people. Maybe she's shy. So it really exhibits itself in such different ways and I can personally attest to that.
Thank you.
Question. How long is the training?
Sure, so let me just double check. There are a couple of different formats involved. I believe it's an hour and a half. 2.5 hours.
Best way to get to my office, 2.5 hours?
Sorry, yes.
Okay. I'm Chief Carroll.
Hi, nice to meet you. Thank you for
I
having
think
me.
it's fabulous and really grateful that you brought it to us.
Thank
And
you.
It's really something I think everyone can benefit from. I don't need to tell you that, but certainly.
Absolutely.
No, thank you. And I have to say the schools have really embraced Maddie and have made such accommodations that I didn't even anticipate. I kind of expected to go into the transition to kindergarten and having to kind of fight for services she needed. And I was pleasantly surprised that it's gone really well and it's been a very, really
Happy to hear
supportive
that.
environment.
That's good to hear.
Yes.
Which is
I'm
great to
happy
hear
hear that.
because with my brother wasn't the case necessarily. So it's really reassuring to see that there is progress being made and let's continue that on.
And I think that overall, aside from helping businesses and first responders, we are going to create an environment where all the families feel a lot more understanding and acceptance and feel a better sense of inclusion.
Right.
So I think it's wonderful. Thank you for
Thank you.
taking the time
Thank you.
Thank
to
you.
bring this to us and I look forward to our first steps. So maybe you and I can connect, or you can connect with Jill and we can work on the first letter to go
Sure.
out, or you can show us what you have
That'd be great.
and we'll take that first step.
Perfect. Thank you. I
Great. Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
coming
Thank you for
here.
your
Thank you.
time.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Can we buy this? Yes, it's on Amazon, Target, everywhere, but it's just a special second
We'll
copy.
put it on display.
It's at the Chapel Library
I
as
was
well.
gonna say,
Yeah.
so we are participating in the display at Chapel
Yes.
Library. They wanted to know if I had an extra,
I dropped one off earlier today.
the book?
Yes.
Okay, I have to drop off one of the Epic Ambassador
Oh, great.
t-shirts.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was told that they have an extra one, so what is the date they need it by?
So it's for July actually.
Oh, okay.
So we've got plenty of
have
time.
a little
I thought it
time.
was sooner as well, and
Me
so I
too.
dropped it off
Yeah,
this
I got very
morning in
nervous
a
when I missed
his,
it. Okay,
but
great.
yes.
So that's wonderful.
Yes,
Thank
but
you.
thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you for
Have a
coming.
great night.
Thank you.
Okay, good
You
night,
too.
Kelly. Okay, and next we have Nicole Roche coming up for the Millwood West End Advisory Board and a couple of other members of the board who will introduce themselves. Thank you so much for coming, Nicole and
Thank you for inviting
and
us.
everyone. We have been trying to do this for a while. We're looking forward to hearing about what's going on in Millwood, what the issues are, and a little bit about what you do, you can introduce yourself and your mission for those who don't know.
Okay, sure.
But let's first introduce ourselves to
I'm
the
Sally.
members.
Sorry, Sally
Hi,
Veras.
Kelly, hello.
I'm David Valdez.
And you know what, it might be helpful, cause I know almost everybody at the table, so that David and Silly know who's a board member,
Oh, well, I feel bad we didn't do
who's
this
who.
for Kelly. I'm Vicky Tip, I'm your town supervisor.
Ally Shemtov, town board.
Holly McCall, Town Board.
Robert Deary, I'm the comptroller.
Hi, I'm Jill Shapiro, I'm the town administrator.
Lino Shirota, town attorney.
Jim Carroll, Police Chief.
Jen Klein, Town Board.
Jeremy Salan, Town Board.
Right, thank you.
And we have Christina Papes. Who could be sitting here too, but- okay.
Fine.
So I think Lauren is the wizard behind the wall controlling the slides, so if Lauren can hear us, if we could have the first slide.
Where's Lauren? Lauren's on,
Here we
she's
go.
there.
She's on Zoom.
Oh.
You missed her.
She's gonna work with Nicole and present through the slides.
Okay, great. So this mission statement is actually comes right off the website. And I could read it, but if everybody just wants to take a minute and read it so you know the big picture. Okay, next slide, Lauren. Is everybody good? So I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on this, but I just wanted to give people a 2-minute or less story of the history of the Millwood West End Advisory Board, which was actually formed as the Millwood Task Force, and that was in 1974, formed by Erwin Brussel Smith. And it was his and his wife who had the vision to create the board to address the perception that Millwood and the West End always had as the stepchild of the town of Newcastle, and to advocate for equal distribution of town resources and improving the general quality of life and appearance of Millwood and the West End. Right, so they're basically, we could go on, anybody have any questions about this? Okay, Lauren, we can go on. So they're basically three areas that I wanted to talk about, and Sally and David will chime in also. One of them is that of the Millwood West End Advisory Board being the eyes and ears of Millwood and the West End. The other is to share how, in what ways the Millwood West End Advisory Board and previously the Millwood Task Force has assisted the town in town initiatives and be a resource for the town in that way. And then the third is some of our thoughts and desires about quality of life issues in Millwood and the West End. So we'll start with eyes and ears of the Millwood and West End, and Sally and David and I were just talking outside, like, you know, sometimes you'll go by and see something like a down pole, and I have a photograph of it on the next slide. And you see this pole down, like there was one coming out of the Taconic Parkway going north exit onto Pines Ridge Road, and you see the pole down and you say, oh, surely somebody knows about that pole. And then 3 days later, oh, surely someone, you know, must know about the pole. And then a week later, oh, you know, I'm sure someone, you know, has it on their list somewhere. You know, a month later, the pole is still there. So, you know, because, you know, town board members, people in building department aren't always navigating in the West End, you know, we can be there to alert town administrator, code enforcer about various things. So we have had damaged property with fences, lampposts, signs, trees, etc. Another thing that we can alert the town to is and this is, I know, been a bone of contention because the town code has changed regarding you know, like the campaign type sign that advertise businesses, and so now they're putting the signs up on poles, you know, nailing them up higher than anybody can remove them. So that's an issue, and some of these slides overlap, right? That's also a quality of life issue to be driving around with all the advertising. One thing that we're seeing more of, and there's a picture of that also, is the tagging and the graffiti. And we haven't brought this up before, but it is increasing. So
Maybe next slide, cause there's some pictures.
Is it a repetitive spot?
Alaris, Glendale Road, you know,
Pines
the speed signs are tagged, right? So, and that's been, I don't know, 10 months or so. So the town, no policeman or town person has looked up and said, oh my God, like we should replace that sign or we should fix that. So we watch it and now we're showing it to you. In the cement guarding there, that's on Alaris. That was thankfully put in by the town because there was a resident that took it upon themselves to just carve out of 2 other persons' properties and created 4 parking spaces while they were completely land, none of it with a permit. And so that's an example of the kinds of things that you're like, well, I wonder what's going on with that, so we will call zoning and planning and well, they'll say, well, nothing, and then we'll say, well, you should go take a look because they, drilled holes in town-owned walls and connected up the water system to the town drains and, maybe go take a look. The result of that was the saving of that entire mountainside, really, where the trees were starting to come down and the water, and they dug a huge trench that they had actually piped underneath Alaris Road to connect their water to the drains that
Back
go
up to the
into.
sanctuary?
Pardon me?
Is it back up to the sanctuary, a different property?
It's above it, so it's in the water path that all the water that flows into the town of Austining, it's on that path. So at any given time, there's actually water flowing at all times there from the mountain. So that's where that is. So that did stop all the activity.
Can I ask you something? Did you say that they cut into someone else's property? And what did that property owner do? Did they
So
even know?
neither
about it?
property owner really said anything, but later I found out that they did it kind of where there was not, I don't think intentionally that they said, here's the property line, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. What happened was they were just doing construction, so they didn't have anywhere to park. So they slowly parked one car and then trucks and then two cars and then four cars.
But
and
not on their own.
it was because
property,
it was
on someone-
across the street.
Right.
So on Alaris, it's like 45-degree slope where they were working. And they were earth moving, like they were, they built a pool, they built a pool house, they cut down
So many
maybe
trees.
40% of the trees. And they repiped, they changed the entire water flow on the property by the time the Millwood West End Advisory Board kind of, got the town to act on
And
it.
the problem with this like really egregious digging out, cutting out of the slope to make the parking is they exposed a lot of tree roots. And so those trees are going to have to come down. They may die first or fall down, but they're gonna have to come down. And in terms of making a hole, just a piece of history, Alaris Road is a beautiful road, except it's very steep and very windy. And it has always had a storm management water problem. And it used to turn into a sheet of ice to the point that the school buses were no longer allowed to go down Alaris Road. This goes back a number of years. So the town at great expense rebuilt this beautiful stone wall to manage the water. And so this homeowner also put a hole,
Missed
took out
several
stones
holes.
and put a hole in the stone wall and put a big PVC pipe through it to drain water from his property. But I don't wanna get,
We
stuck
don't-
in details.
we're not-
this
I
is
don't think that people
very
were not
compelling.
aware that the town of Newcastle is the owner of the stone wall, right? I just think that this person bought this property, they were like, listen, I'm gonna bore a hole through this thing because I want my water to go through there.
stones.
And it's, it could cause the wall to collapse or whatever, but it definitely disrupted and reintroduced the ice lick on Alaris Road for this winter, which was why the town kind of went to that. So we're saying all this not to so much focus on that property, but to say, look, this is an example of what the Millwood West End Advisory Board does. And just like on another recent change of property on Alaris Circle, property changed hands.
David,
And-
we have to move on. We
Yeah,
can't really
and,
go
they
into
just
much
cleared-
detail.
Right, this is very, very compelling to listen to, but
Yeah,
yeah,
go
I
ahead.
appreciate it. We do have to move on because we have
Yeah,
other,
understood.
So, but what, there is, can we go back, Lauren? There has been, other clear cutting on Alaris Road for parking driveway situation. Other things that we've observed has been filling in wetlands, the use of residential properties for commercial businesses, mostly like car, auto body, I'm not sure exactly what they're doing, properties that have like 7 or 8 cars with no license plates on them.
Retreats also. Wasn't there,
What?
was it in Millwood a retreat, the place wanted to have a retreat there? Is that in Millwood?
What was the question?
There was a property that wanted to have a retreat there, I believe,
It was on the West End.
yeah, on the west end, it's all right, go ahead, I'm sorry.
We have one inhabited house that I'm aware of with the vines growing, and I know there's been a new law passed about that. And then we have also brought to the attention to the planning board and town engineer in one situation where there was an expired site plan where the landscaping and curbing and parking that was supposed to have been created wasn't done, and it wasn't done, and it wasn't done. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, it was like 3 or 4 years. And no extension of the site plan was even asked for. So it was just sitting there, an eyesore, but that has been taken care of. The illegal business sting operation, this goes back, Jill, maybe you remember this? By the Country Deli in downtown Millwood. There is now a massage place there, but there was previously a massage place there that was very questionable. And there were people who you would see entering the place. Do you remember this, Jeremy? And they were
Yes, but for
parked. Do you
for
remember this,
Jeremy.
Okay. Shaking their head like you're very familiar.
Jeremy
Yes,
and
I do,
Robert
in
Kraft,
fact, I
you
do,
remember?
but for
Visitors?
professional reasons, not personal.
And the cars, the clients would park in the back and they had New Jersey plates and Connecticut plates, and the town had a sting operation. It wasn't.
Yes, I
So
do.
I would just add
remember
that
this.
in our experience, we find the town extremely responsive, right? So that when we reach out to Tom DePaul or we reach out to someone in one of the environmental committees or whatever, there's a look into it, there's kind of an alert that goes on, and so we're glad for that.
Okay, Lauren, next slide. Oh, next slide. Here we go. That pole there in the upper left, that was there for a long time, and when I finally brought it to Jill's attention, she took care of it like overnight. But, you know, she had to
You
know
just gotta
about it.
scream at the right person.
And
That's
then,
Is that-
That's at the Taconic?
what?
That's at the entrance to the Taconic? Where is that?
It's the exit from the Taconic
On Pines
going
Grove.
north.
I'm not
And
always so
you're
successful, just to let you know.
Okay.
Oh,
Right.
I'm not always so
Pines-
successful.
It's right by Amsterdam Park.
Yeah.
And the on the right,
Pretty egregious.
It is towards Oslo.
the upper right is
That was the Con Ed
Oh,
property, right?
yeah,
The
they
passive
came
park.
down on the fence.
That was resolved a couple of years ago, right?
And yeah, that was there
Passive
for a
park, I think
long
it was
time.
just last year.
Was it last year?
We
But now we
didn't
have
realize
a-
that we were responsible. It's Con Ed's property, but we're responsible for everything, and no, we cannot use it for anything. It's called
Passive
a
park.
passive park. And what it means is you may look at it, but you may not walk on it, you may not touch it, you may not use it for anything. Otherwise, they're gonna take and put
Take it
something there
away.
that we would not want, so, yeah.
So
in-
you will be getting another photograph.
Okay.
It's not as bad as this, it's one railing.
Yeah, the fence is our responsibility, we didn't realize it, so yeah, as you could bring it to my attention as you see it, we would definitely be out there.
Okay, next slide please, Lauren. Okay, so this is assisting with town initiatives, and these are all projects we've participated with in the past. So one was collaborating with the DOT on the intersection of Route 100, Route 133, and where they get off the Taconic.
Yep.
You may remember that the cyclists used to have to cross Route 100 at the Shell station, then go up, cross 133, then cross Route 100 back to rejoin the trail. So now the cyclists stay on the east side of Route 100. I still think it's kind of dangerous. I think that where you come off the Taconic, I'm always worried about the cyclists there. And what I had advocated for was a no turn on red. But anyway, so we worked on that with the DOT in the town. We also collaborated on the design for the screening of the DOT building. I was looking for the plans for that. I actually have them somewhere to show you in a on a slide, but I can't find that. And there was one tree that died that was used for the part of the screening, and that eventually was removed, and they haven't replaced it. And there's another tree that's dying. Not that this, I mean, the amount of screening was minimal at best, but some work needs to be done there. The other one was that we collaborated on with the town was the town at that time asked us to advise us on uses for the Amsterdam estate when it was first purchased by the town, before it was decided to make the soccer fields. And then also we've been given in the past plans either that applicants have made or their preliminary proposals that have been made to the town, mostly for special use permits. Some of them are not for special use permits, just developments like the Shell station, for example. That was always a Shell, that was always, I think it was a Shell station, there was always a gas station. But when the new owner, John, came in, you know, the town asked us to be involved with that. Some of the special use permits that have come up in the West End are for farming, for a hospital, for a residential area, but in a industrial area, so reversing the zoning, right? And which that particular one, and it was a preliminary, it wasn't an actual application, right? So when the applicant, potential applicant comes and says, this is what we're thinking, what do you think? And an environmental center. So that's something that we really would like to be as involved in as possible, that as the town knows, you know, if somebody has come before, usually Sabrina, or the planning board, that we would, you know, really appreciate having a heads up so that we can get a lay of the land and get a feel for, you know, how people in the West End are going to be feeling about.
Yeah, and I think there's two things that you all are already aware of that I'm sure will come into conversation soon, and that is Fable Farm has aspirations to build out a retail farming operation on Route 134, basically across the street from the Millwood Fire Station there. They've already moved all their barns and disassembled them, and the person who owns that property, we don't know if there's a lease or not, but they've actually constructed buildings. The buildings are up, and they're slowly reassembling whatever they're doing there that you can see off of Route 134. But there are no permits in, but I believe there's been some conversation, but just so that the board is aware of that one. And then the light has kind of gone off of the town of Newcastle portion of the drug rehabilitation hospital on Quaker Ridge Road, because it's in the town of Cortland. The permit has been the special permit has actually been approved for the hospital there, but there's continuing litigation over that. But the owners have kind of, you know, it's too soon to characterize what they did, but they kind of said, we won't touch the Newcastle piece. They originally granted an easement to use Glendale as the main road in and out.
Yeah,
Yes,
is that
yes, we
the Newcastle piece, that's the parking area?
Yeah, it's the
And-
it's the corner of Quaker Ridge Road and Glendale Road. And it's 24 acres. It's a big piece of property. And
Our piece is, how many
It's
acres?
24
But that
acres.
wasn't
Our
what
piece
the
is
structure
24 acres,
And then
right.
the other piece in Cortland is roughly 24 acres. They're equal. I'm not sure the
No,
exact number.
Newcastle I think is 28 and the Portland piece is like much
We were
more,
interested-
Okay.
12 or something.
Yes, I
So-
remember.
In any case, this will cycle back to Newcastle, I think, if it does proceed, because they're adjoining properties, the owners are still, even though they've changed LLCs and they've kind of fooled around with who the owner is, and the easement, their goal or their need is going to be to try to come and go from Glendale into the property and out. For us, in that section of the West End, the idea of like a well-lit hospital, I mean, it is pitch black at night, like it is just complete, and all the residents and the culture of that end of Glendale is, everyone's on like light timers and it's so dark, sometimes you're like, what in the world, you can't even see. But a hospital in that location will forever, I mean, it'll just change it dramatically, so we'll see what happens.
Okay, Lauren, next slide. Okay, Silly, do you wanna address any of these?
Okay, so we wanna advocate for improvements in the quality of life in the area. Some of them you're doing or have done and will continue to do. For example, pollinator meadows, replacement of Sunny Ridge Park sign, that's something that was vandalized recently.
It was started on fire for some reason.
They
Um,
light on fire.
So
Yeah,
we're
people
hoping
know
to
that
see
sign I
that.
set on fire?
And we are hoping to diminish residential lighting by encouraging folks to put on sensor lights so that we can help our birds migrate.
How do you do that? Do you do door knockers? How do you communicate with them?
Well, the TAN list is one of the channels because everybody who lives near T-Town or the T-Town area, there's the TAN Google list, and it's literally everyone in the entire community. So there's a lot of exchange of information. Some of you may be on the TAN list, sometimes it's just
You have to live next to T-Town to be on it.
right,
But the thing about the diminished residential lighting is I've also talked briefly with the sustainability board about that, so that might be something that we could coordinate in terms of how do you address it. And the other thing, and I had written to the planning board about this a long time ago, before we were even rekindled as a board, about the green buildings, and whether that included the window glass that was bird safe. I don't know if anybody knows about that, but both the lighting and the it's like Flacco, the owl who just went into a window.
But-
So, and in fact, there are laws in New York City that, you know, buildings above floors above a certain height have to have this bird protective glass in it.
They also
like
found
something
rat
that-
poisoning in his blood.
What?
They also found high levels of rat poisoning.
And Flacco?
yeah,
He was
Of
eating
course.
the
But
money.
to-
dinner.
So sad.
but Vicky, to
It was
answer
a
your
sad
question,
episode, but
if, like, to give specific example, it's kind of in the West End, the neighbors talking to other neighbors, so it's all voluntary.
yeah, okay.
But I've known specific circumstances where like someone moved in, they're new to town, they wanna light up their whole property, they do, and then inevitably over time as
We're running out, we're down
Okay.
15 minutes.
Yeah,
they'll
so
change
just
and turn their lights
so you know,
off.
our town board meeting is at 7 and we have 2 other
Okay,
presentations, so this
Well,
is
can
all
I do this-
important stuff. I don't wanna rush, but we're gonna have to
yeah, let's finish.
Can I do this
abbreviate.
very quickly? Okay,
Yeah.
so I think many of you know, we requested, remember we're on improvements in quality of life, so the backboard for the tennis court, which has been requested for a long time.
No, I think that's coming.
Yeah,
Oh, it is?
It's coming, yeah, that's coming.
Well, we don't even know.
Yeah, that's
Today
coming.
my day.
Pickleball
I-
nets,
You ask,
pickleball, it's
you ask,
coming.
we will deliver.
Yep.
It's it's going to be done this
Talk
year.
Yeah.
about art sculpture and murals, cause I
Um,
really wanna hear about that.
Okay, the expert on that couldn't come here tonight, but
Oh.
I wanted to give credit to the chief for the road calming. That was one of our first initiatives when we were rekindled, and a number of the roads that were considered unsafe, we put up signs and the monitors and everything, so thank you for that.
You know, and I'm going to suggest there are some really interesting initiatives here, and to the extent that they coincide with, like, I know you're working on the arts,
Yeah.
can you connect with one another and go
Yep.
over it in detail?
Can you
Yeah.
tell me your email address?
Okay, so
You
I'm
can
just
send
gonna
it
say
later.
2 things,
Okay,
alright, and then we'll get together.
Yep.
One of them has to do with the cell phone tower in West End, I know the town did the survey.
Yep.
So
And
you want a cell phone tower?
They
I
do-
asked that to David yesterday, who lives in the West End. I said, before I put this on here, do
Look,
people in the West
for-
End want a tower? And what was
For
your
tho-
answer?
absolutely, look, for those people who live on Glendale or even literally, there's no phone service, like you can't call the
Okay, we're
police, you
gonna
can't
move
get
on,
the
Dave.
fire,
So that's a
it's,
yes.
there's,
Okay,
yeah.
and the last thing
So the
is
answer is
that,
Emphatically, yes.
So we do have an intern working on that, trying to coordinate the layers of gaps in cell service along with property ownership, so we can see whether or not there are appropriate parcels for us to be able to approach property owners and then cell phone tower operators to be able to link the two. So that's coming. We have an
Okay,
intern
great.
currently working on it.
and then the last thing was the paving of Croton Dam Road in the town of Newcastle. Originally, it was, the Croton Dam Road was only gonna be paved from Route 100 to Conic, which is all in the town of Yorktown. So I asked Chris Burdick about it, and he said, oh, well, we didn't know Newcastle wanted that paved. So we are now in the books to have the Newcastle portion of Croton Dam Road
Thank you.
paved.
Yeah, it's a
Yay.
major
Thank you.
thing, from Grace Lane all the way, it's huge.
Okay,
That
and
is a
last
big-
slide,
yeah, it is.
I think you have this in your packets, or will be available to you, we're not gonna go into the details, but these are like big major projects that I will be long gone when they come to fruition, but they're the things
Hope
we
not.
talk about.
Depends.
Hope not.
Is the presentation in our packets, Jill? I don't,
I didn't see
I
it.
don't see, can you send it, Nicole, just send it electronically?
Sure.
Oh,
After-
yeah,
after-
yeah.
Slides, yeah,
after-
we have it now,
after
so
your
we'll be
present-
able
yeah.
to
Okay,
forward
just
it to the board.
send it to us,
Yes.
okay, great,
Okay.
great.
Well, thank you again for inviting us.
Thank you
I know
so
it was
much.
a lot.
And I know that there's a lot to talk about, so there's more and we can talk offline and
Yep.
but we really appreciate this overview of everything you've been doing. It's really tremendous effort. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Good talking to you.
Okay.
Sorry to
Alright.
hold you up.
Thank you
so
so
much.
much.
No, not
It's
at all,
really,
yeah.
really interesting.
So the next
Okay.
thing on our
Yeah.
agenda is a draft local law to raise the fine for noise violations for the owners.
Why are we raising it?
Yes, from 250 to 500.
Seb had requested in an effort to
I think that's a little high.
yeah.
I think 500's a little high.
This was a
Well,
request.
it's currently $250.
Up to 250, but the judge has discretion.
It's a
500
request by
SAB.
SAB, the Sustainability Advisory Board.
I still think it's high.
I
I know
don't
that, I understand that's their request, but I
don't
think
know
5 is high.
that we've adopted the other measures, like have we put door knockers, have we gone
We
to
haven't
neighborhoods?
because we're waiting for them to present us with door hangers.
Now, we talked about this already, we talked about doing the door knockers first, doing an outreach,
Mhm.
communicating, and then
Yep.
later on,
If we
escal-
still
perhaps
feel like this is a
escalating.
problem.
So while I appreciate that we put this on the agenda, I feel that we haven't really done
We're
what we
leapfrogging.
committed to do.
It's premature.
Yes, I agree.
Can I ask
Yes.
a question first? How many times has anyone been fined for this anyways?
I think 0.
Yeah, I think it's, the issue is first enforcement, and I know initially you wanted to do just warnings to get people to understand what they can and can't
Education
do.
first.
And then there's an issue of people actually witnessing it and the officers witnessing it. So there's been issues, you can explain that, but 500 I think is a
There's a
jump.
gradation of
Correct.
consequences and an escalation, I think we're still at the floor.
Correct.
Holly, you're the liaison to
Yeah.
SAB.
Mhm.
Could you go back and discuss this with
Yeah,
them about the,
absolutely.
incremental enforcement? Well, first with communication, because we haven't had that piece yet.
If I could add, we received 19 total complaints last year.
Okay.
Okay,
And Tom DePolo is here to speak with us. We've had a public hearing in a little bit, but Tom's here as well.
Good
You can
Yeah.
offer, do you wanna come
But-
join us?
but
Yeah,
well,
come and
considering
see.
considering that we're running very late and there are people here who are, from Sustainable
Come join us.
Westchester, waiting, hello, we basically understand what they want. I mean, they're impatient, we would love for people to comply. But I just think we need the communication piece first.
Karen?
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
think it's premature to consider increasing the fine because we don't know that the 250 is not effective yet.
Right, that's not the issue.
Right, right.
That's-
Great, so we're gonna table that.
Okay,
Thanks.
okay.
Thank you.
And the next is just an informal discussion about just school resource officer costs.
Right, so I just wanna put this into context, so the reason we're discussing SRO costs is, it would not be my preference to discuss something on the school budget at the 11th hour, that's not usually what we do. But people have been asking about the SRO costs and why they're structured the way they are. And they've been asking the school board members and the school board president, who has sent the people to us, I guess basically to me. And I've got a whole slew of questions in the past few days. So I felt it was important to just put it on the public agenda so that everyone could have answers in public at the same time so we could really explain it. These are our costs, but ultimately these are numbers for the school district and we're not opining on their budget or whether they should or should not have SROs. That is a school board decision. But we're trying to be helpful since they've sent people to us, so we are going to explain as best we can why it's been structured financially the way it has. So Rob created a mini spreadsheet here and we're going to go through it.
Sure, so what I've projected here are just the total cost that the town would incur for hiring one of these officers, and the cost for the salary and the benefits alone for the officer. So for each officer, we've assumed the salary of a PO1, anything in black are costs that we know. So the PBA contract runs through 2027, so we have the exact amounts for that patrol officer's salary. FICA Medicare share, that's a set number, so we know that exactly. Retirement contribution, we do have those numbers for a 2-year period from the state. Going to the next 2 years, we project that out with a small escalator. We rarely have seen retirement costs to the town go down. They typically go up 1 or 2% each year. The next line down is the health benefits, the town share of health benefits for an officer. That's contractual as well. Typically, police officer will contribute about 15% of the total benefits, the total cost of the premium, and the town picks up the rest. And then the next is the workers' compensation. So you see over a period of 4 years, that's the total cost for the town. Begins just south of 200,000 and it escalates up to about 219,000 by the end of the 4-year period.
Okay, thank you, Rob. One of the questions we've received is why there's a differential in costs or cost to the school district between the first contract with Michelle at the high school and the second contract with the 2 other SROs that are being shared by the middle schools and elementary schools. And so could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, I mean, there are 2 separate contracts that cover the 3 officers right now. The first one for Michelle, and that started, was it 2019? Okay, so in the beginning, we started with 1 officer. It took a while to get that agreement settled, it was about a year. We absorbed a lot of the cost of that in the beginning just to get the officer in place. But the situation with Michelle was different than anything going forward. We had the officer on staff, we didn't have to backfill, we didn't have to replace the position. We were able to kind of reassign her to the school, and that allowed us, we did want to get a share from the school, some contribution. Again, it was a negotiated number, we shared some of our costs with the school, and that was the number we arrived at back then.
Right, but the relevant point is that we didn't have to hire a
Correct.
new officer for that.
Mhm.
And also, we weren't sure, and the school wasn't sure whether this program would be, would be
Successful.
desirable or
Correct.
successful.
This
And
is
so
actually
that,
the
you know, so-
second contract for that, because we did start with a couple short-term contracts in case either side wasn't interested in continuing the program. We've gone the other way. Instead of discontinuing the program, we're now looking to add several more officers.
Right, so the circumstances surrounding each contract were very different.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the point, right? Okay.
Yeah, so the second contract came about last year. I think the school district had already adopted their budget, and then due to, I guess, sentiment throughout the town that they really wanted to see officers in more of the schools, and that was an agreement then we reached last year with the town board at the time and the school district. I think when we went into the meeting, we were pretty far apart. The school district was hoping we would absorb all of the costs of a new officer, and we were hoping they would pay all of the costs for a new officer. So again, through a process of negotiation, we arrived at a number that was a greater portion of the school would accept a greater portion of that than in the prior contract. Now, we did, in an effort to be accommodating to the school, with the understanding they hadn't anticipated it in the 23-24 budget, we did leave the cost for that first year the same as the prior contract with Michelle, and that was about $139,000. So the second year then of that contract goes up to about $174,000.
Yeah, and we were being accommodating. So, you know, in terms of they're asking for the town to pay 100% of the cost, some municipalities do that. For instance, I believe Ossining does. But if you think about it, the town of Ossining only has the Ossining School District within its town borders, whereas the town of Newcastle has a total of 6 school districts within it. The majority is CCSD, but we also have residents from school districts of Ossining, Bedford, Yorktown, Byram Hills, and one parcel in Pleasantville, on top of CCSD. So we have to be mindful of the balance between the town benefiting from more officers, and the more officers we have that we wouldn't otherwise hire, the more diminishing returns we have for those officers. And so although there is a benefit, we have to consider our residents who are in different school districts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I'll point out there's some other costs that we didn't show here, but there are some kind of fixed costs that go into it. These are the personnel costs for an officer, but when we hire one, we have to outfit them, and there's a cost of about $7,000 to outfit them. They need bulletproof vests, they need weapon, they need uniforms, etc. And unfortunately, we didn't have the cars at the time, or we haven't over the last couple of years. We're finally getting some of the vehicles we ordered in 2022, finally getting those in. After COVID, there were significant supply chain problems getting these vehicles, but we didn't have all these vehicles around. As the chief mentioned a little bit earlier when we were talking, there's anywhere between 3 and 6 cars out on the road at any one time, usually 3 or 4, but that encompasses most of our fleet to do that. So in order to have vehicles for these officers to have to drive to the school, and I think in the original contract at the school's request, they wanted a police vehicle in front of the school. So in order to accommodate that, we do have to increase our fleet.
And the uniform and equipment fees, those one-time costs, those are being paid by the town.
Being paid by the town, correct?
So Chief, my understanding is that your department needs more or less 37 officers.
Yes, we can run on 37.
You can run on 37.
Without an SRO program.
We had 37 with the first SRO with Michelle,
Yes,
and we now have 39.
we have 40. So I guess it's 38, yeah. So
Okay,
eventually, when we had a contract with the CCSD, we had an officer. Right, so we went to
Right.
38, and then we added 2 more with the next 2.
2 more.
And if the budget passes, we're looking to add 3 more. So I guess 37.
So let's say you need 37, 38, and we're going to, if we have the 3 more, we'll end up with
43.
43. Okay. And that would be a real commitment to the town. So if the school were to decide that they didn't want all of those SROs in the near future, we would have to maintain those officers as employees. Yeah.
Through attrition.
Yeah, I just want
Through-
people
yes,
to understand and
yes.
maybe through
Through
attrition, we
attrition.
would get back down to a number, but we would have employees here for some time.
Quite
So
possibly, yes.
that is a risk. Does anyone have any other clarifying questions?
I think Chief answered the issue about whether or not we need those officers in terms of satisfying the needs of the municipality. And we certainly have enough now, but the question then becomes, as you just mentioned, if we have more, there is a benefit still to the town. There's still a benefit, but to your point, diminishing returns at some point. And I don't know if you mentioned, but if this does all go through, some of the protection we would have would be to stagger the potential dates to release those officers. So in other words, it couldn't just all happen at once where the school district would say, we don't want it anymore. Now you're stuck with all these officers. It would have to be staggered to protect us, at least in part.
We could work that out, hopefully, right. Another factor we didn't discuss is the number of days that these officers would work. They would work 185 days for the school district.
Correct.
So just so people know, it's not like they work 360 days. So could you explain the number of days that would be left
Yeah,
on
sure.
balance?
The current PBA contract allows for an officer to work 227 days. They're 8-hour and 25-minute shifts, and that's part of that is for overlap, so no area in town doesn't ever have an officer. First 15 minutes of their tour is a muster. You see it all the time where the sergeant comes up and talks about what's going on and make assignments. Last 10 minutes, they're finishing up reports, so it's 227 days. Minus the 185 that they're assigned to the school, brings us down to 42 days. Now, a senior officer has 24 vacation days and 5 personal days, total 29, which brings us to 13 days that the town would have the officer on the road. 13, I think 15 is a better number if they take a couple of personnel days during the year. It goes to 15, Michelle, one of the officers took, vacation, so she'll be working 19 days over the summer, but I think 15 is a good hard and fast number for us to go by. And if it's 6 of them, there's 90 extra days over the summer, which, increases patrol for the town, helps offset some overtime.
Right.
Yeah, so I
We're
think
able to leverage
people would be really surprised to hear, so basically on average, they have 15 working days left
Correct.
for the town to use. So that's really something to
And
to
that you said
consider.
that would offset some of the overtime costs
Yeah.
or additional costs. Okay, that's helpful.
Okay. I suppose that's it. Rob, you'll be here for the balance of the meeting. We might get questions during public comment session. Chief, I don't know that you necessarily have to say, although if you really want to.
I think I'll say just in case something comes up in public comment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that does it for our work session.
We just have administrative items. Does anyone have any questions on them?
I don't.
Okay, the only thing I just want to mention to the board is we're actually tabling the authorization to purchase the cameras for town hall and the train station. We're waiting for the proper contract to come through.
Okay.
So move to adjourn?
No,
We are,
the local authorization to set a public hearing on the local law, we're
we're
not going to.
crossing that out.
We're crossing-
yeah,
We're
yes, I'm
going
sorry,
to
yes,
remove
yeah.
that from our consent agenda.
Oh, that's consent, yeah, I haven't got there yet.
Let's see what
Yeah,
else.
so just the administrative items.
Okay, so we have a motion to close the work session and enter into a town board
So
session.
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we'll get back to our seats up there.
Musical chairs too.
Can you get all these tables moved out We're live, okay. All right, so we've already opened up our town board meeting, but I want to welcome everyone again. We have a very special event going on here. We want to welcome some of our Greeley athletes for incredible accomplishments. We want to welcome our track team and boys track team and boys swim team. And first, I just want to let you know how proud we are of you, not just for your wins and your medals, but for what you exemplify to the whole community and to your fellow students. You show strength of character, leadership, perseverance, and resilience, and all of the amazing things you learn in what we call classrooms without walls. So I just want to congratulate you. And so these are New York State Championship winners. You've won a record number of medals for swim and dive and indoor track. You've won 7 state titles. And so what I'd like to do is invite each of you one at a time, and then we'll end up taking a picture with the town board. So first, we'll start with the track team. You've won, and you can correct me if I've got any of this wrong, but you've won medals in 4 of 6 events, 2 state championship titles, 2 bronze medals. You've made some personal records, including one by the fastest freshman in New York State. Have I got that right? All right, so first I want to welcome up, and not everyone could be here, Ben Ho, state champion for the 4x200 relay, Ben Ho. And Kyle McKinney for the same. Will Weiss, come on up. We got Seamus Finn, I'm not sure he could be here today. Nico Wright, not sure. Right here, oh yeah, great. Come on up. And I want to congratulate Coach Steve McKinney. Is the coach here?
I am here, yeah.
All right, well, come on up, Coach. Okay, am I missing anyone from track?
I think
This
these are
is
gold
it?
medalists.
Okay, and I'd like to go to the boys swim team. So Horace Greeley was recognized as the highest scoring school in the swim dive state championships. They took home 4 state championship titles, set new state, meet, and federation records. And I want to congratulate coaches Meg Kaplan and Jeannie Kellican, who needed apparently a hand truck to get a box of medals out of the building. So I'd like to welcome Jack Cornish, I'm not sure he could make it today, Eric Engel, Oliver Engel, LJ Gulata, Connor McHugh, Eric Nadicki, Jonas Barclettis, Jaden Holmes, and Adam Kamal, and coaches Kaplan and Pelican. Okay, so we're gonna take a picture with the whole board. So I'd like to invite the board, come on up.
Exterior or interior?
Well, I think we'll have to crowd in a bit. Who's taking, nobody move.
It's always perfect when you're the shortest.
Congratulations.
All right.
Fun.
Okay. All right.
Thank
you.
Part of the academics. I have all the applications, I need your signature and your marriage. Okay?
Jamie, look, hang on a second. Hang on, Jamie. And I just want to say one more thing. I didn't know he was here, but I just want to congratulate our athletic director, Jamie Brock. Jamie, you want to go up to one more picture with
Well, I need a pen.
Sorry, Jamie, I asked if you were here.
No, that's fine.
Thank you for
Thank you.
Awesome.
Congratulations. approach the bench? Can I approach the bench?
Bye, good night.
Jeremy, I'm gonna go outside.
Yeah, no, it's just.
Go grab my stuff. Yeah, Christina says.
Let's wait for Joel.
Yes, that was the exciting part, is we left.
That one, yeah, I know.
Oh, yeah.
Are we ready? Ready, Jane?
Ready.
Okay, so at this time, we're going to we'll hold off on the announcements. Joe, we'll just go right to Sustainable Westchester. We're going to have I guess a sort of presentation or talk with Dan Welsh, Program Director of Sustainable Westchester, who's here to talk about the program and the rates and what we can expect currently that has been going on in the energy sector.
So Rob, how did you do that before? He's got a thumb drive?
My computer's dying, I'm not sure if they can.
Can you use Dan's or? Wait 1 second. Work out our. I'm just wondering if maybe you want the left turn, so you can rest.
Yeah.
Can
They
they,
give you a thumb drive.
a thumb drive?
Yeah.
It's amazing how my
Thanks, Dan.
It's the only file on it.
Dan, do you want a lectern for your computer?
Well, I'm gonna be able to
Yeah, you're gonna be able to see,
there,
so,
and then
yeah.
No,
I'm gonna-
public
I
comment
guess I'll
comes
just
after
wait
this.
until-
Yeah, wait a second, so it'll come right up.
It comes after this.
No.
Okay, welcome Dan, thank you for coming.
Sure, thanks for inviting.
I will give you the floor. Well, you know, we're here because there've been some, you know, challenges with the rates with the consortium and so we just thought we would have you here so you could talk to us in the community about that and
Yes.
what you can tell us for
Glad to have
going
this
forward.
opportunity. Okay. And I'm here with my colleague, Angela Icana.
Hi, Angela.
Colleague. So, great, so everybody can see this, so thanks for inviting us here for an update and it's great to have the chance to speak to you all in person. Next slide.
Can you maybe move the mic up a little bit? Thank you. Just having trouble hearing.
My days as a rock star.
You can sing to us as you go through it, we'd love that.
So just for the folks who aren't familiar, Sustainable Westchester is an intermunicipal consortium. It's all the municipalities, cities, villages and towns of Westchester come together, created a shared service to build programming and initiatives to help the municipalities do things in the sustainability area, environmental area that they would have difficulties doing themselves, very heavy emphasis on energy, electrification of buildings, and certain specialty programs, group rewards, and of course some recycling stuff. Next slide. And but it's also about innovations and things that again we couldn't do just on our own. So the consortium itself was actually the first of its type in the state where all the municipalities in a county come together and create this shared service. The program that we're going to talk about, the Community Choice Aggregation, that's Westchester Power, was also the first of its kind in New York. There's now dozens of them around the state. We have the first residential demand response program in New York State. That's also an innovation that happened only because we were aggregated together as a collective. We have cutting edge innovations like you can find over on the headquarters in Mount Kisco, which is this solar to EV charging, fast charging with battery storage, which helps to mitigate the stress on the grid, but also throws off solar credit discounts for
for local low-income customers. And recently we've been recognized by the federal government as one of the awardees for their nationwide project to decarbonize non-profit buildings. Much more, the original Solarize program as instituted by Sustainable Westchester is also copied basically around the state, et cetera, et cetera. So this is what coming together allows us to do. Thanks. Next slide. So onto Westchester Powered, and you folks in Newcastle are one of 29 municipalities participating in this, the first and largest aggregation of residential electricity supply in New York State. Next slide. And just to summarize the contract currently as it stands, the supplier is Constellation, a huge energy company, nationwide company. The current rates for the 100% renewable, which is the default product for the kind of territory, is about 15.5 cents. The standard supply, which is basic grid, non-renewable grid supply, is 13.6 and change. And this current contract goes from November 1st of 2022 through the end of October of this year. Next slide, please. So the rates, as you say, are what everybody's paying attention to now. Nobody's really happy with where the contract sits relative to Con Ed today. Put together this chart. This was actually, it was City of Rye actually asked us to do this just to give the overall context over the years, because you can get focused on a given point in time and not necessarily sort of see the whole picture. We actually took the averages for each year just to be able to eyeball those. And you can see that we're behind sometimes, we're ahead sometimes. This particular contract is particularly painful for us, but we've been in good shape. This just the past contract, we were ahead. And overall, if you look all the way back through 2016, just on a simple average, the renewable product ends up costing us, having a premium of about a penny a kilowatt hour. The standard product has been a little less than 0.5 cent more than the utility supply. But there's typically, for a fixed product, there's often a premium.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
What does that mean to such thing as an average consumer? You know, what is a house, let's say a 2,500 square foot house, a 4,000 square foot house?
Average consumer in sort of northern Westchester-ish is something over 1,000 kilowatt hours, maybe 1,100, 1,200. So if you're off by a penny, $10 per month. That's per month.
And per month, and that's for is it just by a unit, meaning a house, or is that including an apartment? Does that include is that a five family?
Northern Westchester tends to be single family home. If you go down to southern Westchester, the average is closer to 500 or 600. So.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. We think this context is also important because it's apples to apples. So if you go out and you try to get renewable power yourself, you're going to go to one of the energy service companies that supplies that. And we pull the rates off of the ones that you see most often out there. And this is the range of rates that we've seen over the time that we've started collecting them. And the Sustainable Westchester rate is consistently at the lower end of all those, sometimes sort of the lowest, sometimes not quite, but even, and it's also, should be recognized that in any given month, as you move forward and you're newly contracting with an ESCO, the market may have changed. But even with that, we've been in a good place relative to comparable products. Next slide, please. And this is just to give us, again, some more context. How did we get where we got to? This was the current contract was the product of a bidding exercise that went on in 2022. And in the fall of 2022, the energy markets were melting down. We were seeing that the war in Ukraine was causing, because of the cutoff of gas to Europe, there was panic about people in Europe were going to start freezing because there wasn't enough gas. It was pulling exports from the US over to European markets where the price for natural gas, and we care about natural gas because it's the primary price driver in the electricity market. So the rates for natural gas over in Europe are like 10 times what they are here. So there's arbitrage going on. So we're looking at this, and this is the market we were sitting in at the time. Next slide. And then the 7. So even with all that, and the war is still continuing as if it would never end, and the gas still cut off from Europe, everybody just decided, well, I guess it's not a big deal. Of course, temperatures were very mild through the winter, and so the market turned around. Next slide. Back up to sort of the principal level, just remembering the program is focused on helping us all move the needle on renewable energy, increasing the uptake on renewable energy, but doing it in as economically efficient a way as we possibly can. Does provide some value around capping costs, because you know what your price is going to be. You don't know what the utility price is going to be until you've already used that electricity in a variable rate. So you essentially have an opportunity to cap your costs and never pay more than what the program price is. And it's also one more choice that you never had, because you can always switch back and forth if you want. You can switch back to Con Ed, you can switch to another ESCO. So these are kind of the 3 pillars of the program. Next slide. On the clean energy side, that success has been clear and unmitigated. The amount of CO2 that we've managed to mitigate is tremendous, equivalent of 60,000 cars taken off the road annually, and it's the single most impactful thing that any municipality can do at this point to lighten their carbon footprint. Next slide. And we don't have to do a whole thing on climate change, but anybody who's been watching the news may have noticed that some of the reports are getting more and more dire. UN reports that things are moving faster than ever. Of course, we had the wildfires last year, and the reassessment of methane emissions, et cetera, et cetera. So it remains a critical problem and important for us to work on. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah. And again, not to dwell on it, but there's also an important adjunct to the environmental issue is the environmental justice issue, since these the environmental degradation and the problems that are associated with it hit the most vulnerable hardest, whether it be financially, health-wise, to folks who have pre-existing conditions, et cetera, et cetera. Next slide. Again, on the sort of economic efficiency, I think this point is clear. The utilities rates are variable, unpredictable, and at least with the program, you know where you're going to be. Next slide. And again, this just to illustrate the fact that with the program, you have an additional choice that you didn't have. So prior to Westchester Power being instituted, you either were with the utility or you had to go out on your own and seek supply options from private ESCO. So now with Westchester Power, the default changes, it's now Westchester Power, but you still have the same options that you had aside from that. Next slide. Other ancillary benefits are notable. In particular, the program is great as far as pumping up local excitement about the next best project for sustainability. The NYSERDA Clean Energy Communities program has just refreshed their grant offerings, and the dollar values have gone up tremendously. So it's a great opportunity to pick up some funds to bolster your sustainability programming. And the CCA is Westchester Power is the highest earning point designation for that program. Next slide. It's also a platform for the things we still wanna do. We have, for example, put in a proposal to the state for opt-out community solar, which would say we could distribute these solar discount credits that are associated with new solar farms on an opt-out basis, just as we operate the Westchester Power Supply Program, so that you don't have to go through that one-by-one sign-up. And for the developers, then it's more attractive because they know their project's gonna be signed up. But that proposal's been sitting there for almost 2 years now, and we're just making a new sort of refresh of that proposal just today, it just went out, so we're hoping we get a breakthrough on that. We would focus initially on low income customers, because that program would really depend on the phase-wise building of new renewable facilities, and we would wanna prioritize the low income customers, but eventually make it accessible to all. And then beyond that, we hope to leverage the supply program to really drive new construction by potentially setting up structures where we could take our contracted load and say, you build that wind farm for us, we wanna connect to that. And then, of course, it serves as a cornerstone for all the rest of the programming. If you're talking about building electrification, it makes more sense when you have green energy supply, because that means you're zeroing out the whole building energy. Next slide. And just looking forward to what we need to do this year. Again, the contract for the Continental Territory is up at the end of October. And we wanna get started early this year. Usually we're sort of compliance based in terms of our timing. We wanna get a little more time up front so that we can deliberate, we can explore potential modification to our procurement process, make sure that we're flushing as many potential suppliers as we can out of the market. And we're talking to the Department of Public Service about certain ideas we have about modifying procurement, maybe stretching it out so it's not just a one-day affair, so that you split it up and you're not sort of point in time purchasing, different ideas like that. But we wanna get there okay ahead of time. If we look at the regulations, we think that's fine, but it's up to them to say, yes, it's fine or not. So doing that, we're also sending out RFIs, requests for information to suppliers, trying to have more dialogue with them.
Can I ask you a question, because I don't wanna forget as you're going on, if you had the opportunity to do that within this contract, do you think that the rates would have been lower? Would that have made a significant difference?
It should have,
Staggered.
if we would get the second of our ideas, which is to perhaps go to a shorter term contract, or maybe a contract with a sort of an umbrella 2 years, but adjusting every 6 months rather than just locking in for 2 years. Because, you can the market may look at the hedges and forwards at this point in time and say it's gonna be here, but things change, and if we have the ability to move a little bit with the market, that would help too. So these are the things that we're exploring with them. They're all about
Or could it hurt,
Right.
depending?
Could go the other way.
Yeah, of course, the ability to adjust also means that you could move up
It
to.
becomes variable at some point.
So our thought is to stay away from fully variable because there's no particular value there. But if we go to a shorter term, you still have the benefits of stability at that level, and you still know what your rate is gonna be ahead of time. So that's an advantage, in deciding where you wanna be versus utility where again, you don't know until your bill comes what the kilowatt hour rate is, We also look at these as a possibility for building new structures, kind of breaking open the rate a little more in terms of what's under the hood in anticipation of future innovation. So that's one thing that's going on. The other thing, the top item there is important though. Right now, the market is so tight that our other 2 contracts that we signed last fall, we had to go to a 50% renewable default because the demand for renewables has gone up. The supply in the so-called voluntary market is constrained, and so we weren't able to get a fully renewable product. You have to be 50% renewable in New York State in order to call your product renewable under the regulations. So that's kind of the mark there. The state, the DPS, is trying to open up that market by making new classes of renewables available on the voluntary market. So we expect it to open up. But we think that this renewal this time in the fall, we're probably gonna be in a position where we have to settle for 50% temporarily for this next contract. So those are things that are happening. We do hope, as I said, to accelerate this process and get some feedback. We actually have a meeting with the DPS on the 5th. So we hope to get feedback there, a little more feedback from the suppliers, consolidate that, and then start to come out to the municipalities with, like, this is the way we wanna program out the discussions for the next contract.
Okay. Any ideas on what the range might be for the next one?
The
I won't
gas,
hold you to it.
gas, well, yeah, I could pull an actual number, but gas prices have gone to historic lows. It's crazy, so that's another reason to maybe try to move more quickly than we normally would, cause it can't stay that way, you know? So if we can get clarifications in early April and get organized, it would be great if we could get to bid by early May, you know, to
So
try
then
and
you'd be
hang on
locked
to that.
in.
Yeah, and electricity prices tend to lag the gas drop a little bit, so, you know, timing wise, it's better to go out early. So we'll see whether we're just trying to sort of beat that market, or we also have the ability to add in some of these other features and, you know, optimize what we're going out with.
Okay. Alright, so
I think
this,
that might be it, I'm not sure, but yeah,
is it? Okay.
yes, it is, good,
Alright. Well, this happens to be a particularly difficult period, so
for sure, we acknowledge
and
that.
our residents know, and hopefully we'll let them know, they can opt out. They're not
Absolutely.
locked in, there is that option. And this happens to be one of the most impactful ways of addressing climate change and greenhouse gases, so
We hope
I would
people
certainly,
thinking.
you know, there are ups and downs here, but I would
Yeah.
certainly like to stay with the program. I mean, I don't know if we were contemplating the question, but I would just wanna state that you know,
Sure, I
certainly
appreciate that.
still in favor of it, although we're going through a particularly difficult period. But we see a light at the end of the tunnel and hopefully some savings in the next contract.
I would urge anyone who feels uncomfortable, you know, with where they are right now, we're happy to help them out. Anybody else, you know, it's annoying right now, we hope other people can stick with it and help continue to, you know, achieve the mission.
Can I ask sorry,
You go ahead.
just kind of a technical question about opting out. If you opt out, you cannot opt back in, you're
Oh, you
opted out.
can.
Oh, you can, so you're not
Yeah.
opted out for the duration of the contract.
No, now, if you opt out and you have to opt back in yourself proactively. We will not then include you in the next mailing. That's what the PSC wants us to do, and you know, there's pros and cons either way, but that's so you'd have to come back to us. And then, you know, it's not instantaneous because you only switch on meter read dates on your bill cycle dates. So, you know, if you do a transaction, you know, just one day before the cycle date, chances are it won't get processed, you'll be, you know, starting that, whatever that is, the next cycle, essentially.
But so in reality, we actually have a lot of flexibility
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
program as an individual consumer.
Yeah, that's a critical feature of the program is those consumer friendly features. Yeah.
Thank you.
So Dan has done an amazing job of making himself available to any resident. I call him on a regular basis. Vivek Augusta is here as well from SAB. He has been amazing in outreach to the community and really helpful to residents. So if anybody has any problems getting through, sometimes Dan's a popular guy. You can't get him first time around, try again. But if anybody's having problems, they should reach out to the board, reach out to me. We're happy to connect you, answer any questions you have. But everybody should be really clear that all residents have an unfettered ability to opt out at any point in time.
And we chose specifically, if I recall, years ago, to make it opt out as opposed to opt in, because we believe in this, in you, well, you personally, you're standing here now, but we believe in the collective you, and the town have been fairly, if not extremely serious about trying to do what they can or we can for these issues. So as long as residents are educated that they have that option, I think it stays and there's no reason to change.
Yeah, so we appreciate also, any efforts that the town can make to continue to put out the information about the program on your websites and Facebook pages and such, so important.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
anyone else?
so much.
No, thank you for taking the time to come here, and Dan, really appreciate it. Thank you. Is there someone else who wants to? Yeah. Sure.
Dan, you're tall.
You're not as tall.
That's alright. Just a few things. You asked about the impact of the cost differential.
Yeah.
An easy way to think about it is that piece is about half your bill. The other half is flat, whether you're part of Westchester Power or not. So, and there's a 1/3 differential in price, so it's about a 1/6 difference in your bill, if you were with Con Ed on average or not. So yes, I mean, for some people that can break the bank, but that's there. Second thing is, to your point, it's an opt-out program, and so if you look at the numbers, our residents have generally not voted with their feet. There's about 8% to 11% typically month to month of how many of our residents are in the program compared to the beginning of this contract. So we've lost about 8 to 11% of our residents over the last 2 years. And that number goes back up and down. Next month I think it's gonna come back down again from that percentage. Third thing, we talked about the climate impact of this. In 2011, we as a town we had like a climate I forget the exact term, but some kind of a climate roadmap.
Right.
And there was a 60,000 tons of CO2 reduction that we were targeting. This program is about 1/4 of that just by itself. Right, so it's really important from a greenhouse gas mitigation perspective. So given that, the 50% renewable standard going forward is gonna hurt those numbers. One of the things that I always tell people that are having difficulty with their bills is the number one thing you can do is call and opt out. That's easy. But two, if you want to decrease your bills even further, put solar on your roof. Not all our roofs are suitable for solar, but more and more of them are. I mean, panels are getting better, working in the shade. If and when they go to the community solar program as an opt-in, that'd be great. It'll decrease bills and allow us to be default solar as well. But that's the other piece of advice that you can give people. There's zero down, lots of zero down solar options available now, including firms that are run by people that are town residents. So those are the three things I wanted to add.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, that's very helpful, thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Dan.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
coming over.
Collect my thumb drive.
Thumb drive,
Okay.
there's those gentlemen right in back there.
All right, so we'll move on to announcements. Jill, do you have any announcements for us?
Oh, okay. Christina, do you wanna talk about the textiles?
Yes. We're preparing to send out, excuse me, we're preparing to send out our April taxes. The residents should look for those in their mailbox the first week in April. If you don't receive them, please contact us. We're happy to send you a duplicate copy.
Pay them timely.
Yes, okay.
Pay on time.
I'll submit whatever else I have in the for the e-newsletter tomorrow.
Okay, and I'll hold my supervisor's report for the e-newsletter as well, and that'll bring us to public comment. So anyone for public comment, please come up to the microphone, state your name and your address.
Bob Wheeler, 170 Birchwood Close in Chappaqua. Congratulations on your new seating. I haven't been here since that. And Jeremy, you look a lot better outside of television.
I was gonna take that as a compliment.
No, I like your haircut. I want to talk about Chappaqua. It's an absolutely phenomenal community. CCSD is the best school district that we've ever attended as a family, and we've been in quite a number of them over the last 20 years. My son is graduating this year. It's been fantastic. The police department is phenomenal. Everything in this community is just exactly what you would want. But there's one rift, the flag. Okay, when we did Black Lives Matter, I went down every night with a group of people from AT&T where I worked, and we protested the hell out of the police. And people up here protested. And long after we stopped going down to New York, there were protesters out on the street in Chappaqua with Black Lives Matter. You can still see Black Lives Matter. When I wear this shirt around town, I do a lot of social experiments. I get a lot of jeers. I get a lot of like, how dare you wear that shirt? Okay? And I knew something was coming up. And then I watched the CCSD board meetings. Oh my God. Out of control. People screaming at the board, and the board having to say we're a secular school, we can't do this. And they wanted to change the policy of the Middle East curriculum to claim that it was a proxy war between Iran and Iraq. Now, interesting enough, last week, the National Security Agency listed its list of possible terrorist problems. And they unequivocally said that the Iran and Iraq have nothing to do with Palestine. I lived near the World Trade Center, and on 9/11, my office was in the Trade Center. I got out in time, and we only lost one person. I only had to go to one funeral. But when I read Osama bin Laden's letter that says, I attacked you because you attack us in Palestine. And it's on the State Department's website, but they left off a lot of pages. Now, what I want to talk about today, and I want to present to you, is the report from the UN. It's the UN Human Rights Rapporteur on Gaza. Today she announced that it's an actual genocide. That it's gone past the limits of genocide to where there's no question about it. Now I want to know, do you think it's good to placate one part of the community? And I have no problem with anybody in the community. I have no hatred at all. But I'm asking, is it good to placate one while you just infuriate people like me watching children starve? Watching Gallant say, I'm cutting off all of the supplies and everything to Gaza. Watching tanks, they're showing this. Now, I don't know what news media you watch. I watch Al Jazeera, Mondoweiss I subscribe to. I subscribe to Haaretz, Tehran Times, and try to watch it from a world point of view. The mainstream media in America is just breaking now. If you can get the flag down quickly, it would be a really good thing. Because I am, and the rest of the people in the community that are not Jewish, because as you know, there are two sets of people that congregate. Some do something on Saturday morning, others do something else. The ones who do something else on Saturday morning don't feel like they can come here and say anything. I watched the town board meetings right after. When anybody came up here and said anything, if I wore this shirt, I'd have been stoned. And not in a good way. It
took me a while to catch that.
Yeah, I like being stoned, but I don't want to be stoned to death. It was outrageous. But I'm asking you now, peacefully. You asked for somebody to come down and state their address and tell you our complaint. Take down the flag. Please take it down. And not with a ceremony, not giving it to the temple. That is a symbol right now of oppression, of horrific acts of horror. And my last thing is, I have a really problem with the word anti-Semite. And the notion that if you're against Israel, you're an anti-Semite. I hope nobody feels that way. Because I think America has done some horrific things, including the killing fields that was brought to us by Kissinger. I don't think the flag's appropriate. I think it's time to take it down. And just quietly. And the other thing that bothered me is when they did the Palestinian protest and you decided to throw a surcharge of some $500 on the kids to do it again, that's just not cool.
No, we didn't do that. So I'm not sure if you've been reading my newsletters or listening to town board meetings, so we determined to lower the flag shortly.
No,
You
I
know,
mean,
we
do it
determined.
today. Do it now. The
Well,
genocide has
we are
already
going
been said.
we are going to do it when we said we would do it. We said we would do it
To
on or about
placate you.
180 days after
Because
October.
it's got Jewish mysticism?
That's what we decided.
Okay, I think that's.
So this is
It's
what I
we
mean.
decided.
This is
So
what I mean. This
we
is where
are,
you torque the non-Jewish members of
we
your
are a
community.
local town board. I would like to get back to discussing what we were elected to do. We're elected to look at zoning laws, potholes, sidewalks. We're not here to discuss international geopolitics.
Then why are you doing it by raising the flag?
Well,
Why?
the flag wasn't raised by a town board vote, the flag went up, now it's going to be lowered.
You mean somebody just
And that
raised
is
an
all,
Israeli flag?
that is all that we are going to say about it at this time. I no longer want to discuss international politics at town board meetings, that is not why we're here. I appreciate your feelings and I understand them. I respect your opinions, but we are convened here as a town board not to discuss international geopolitical matters. So
How
the
many
flag
people
is
showed
going
up
to
to
be
the rally?
lowered, and
Was
that
it
is
a
all,
few?
that is
Was it
all
a
I have
dozen?
to say.
Or was it quite a number?
That is not, I'm sorry, I don't know what your question is, but that is not relevant.
How many people showed up at the rally? Quite a few.
I don't know,
You have a
and that's
number of
not relevant.
citizens that are against this, and you sit here and say, no, we're gonna do it. Now, where's the freedom of religion?
If I may just very briefly respond.
Of course, yeah.
So just a couple of things. I do appreciate you coming here, and I agree with you that there was a lot of emotion after October 7th when people were very emotional, and I can appreciate that. You never want to make someone feel uncomfortable, but I think we can all appreciate if you have a tie or nexus to something, or in fact actual real relationships with something or someone, that it can be an emotional situation. That aside, just some of the words that you used does not help the conversation. I'm not placating anybody. In my views, I'm not placating. Placating is really long term. Hold on,
What
let you speak.
would you say it is?
I'm gonna finish speaking and then we can
Well, give
continue.
me a better word.
So it's not placating, it's something that some people believe in. I myself am a supporter of Israel. I myself believe in Israel. That being said, I'm also aware that you, the generic you and you personally, you may not very well be. And there needs to be a time when that flag comes down. And we've decided that there is a time, we chose 180 days. And it's not just the Jews who support it. I don't need to go through everyone's religion on the board. I happen to be Jewish. But there are plenty of people who are not Jewish who support Israel. Nobody, whatever term, for me, you spoke, so thank you very much. So nobody wants to see the death of children. You can not support Netanyahu and still support the state of Israel. But to say that this is, I try to pull down some of the words used. Having the flag was a sign of oppression, supporting horrific acts of terror. I don't think that's accurate. We can agree to disagree.
You're just not informed then. You're just not watching the
Okay,
news.
so
Either that or you don't want to be engaged.
So you can certainly make your opinions known, and that's fine to make that statement.
No, it's clear.
So I do think it needs to come down, and we are having a plan to take it down. I disagree with some of the statements you said, and no one's being placated. It's something that some people believe in and some people don't, and that's where it is. If I was placating people, just think about it this way, I could easily placate other Jewish people and other people who are not Jewish to support Israel, and we could keep it up as long as there's hostages out. That's not what we're doing. There's never a perfect answer,
but we're trying to bring that
You
harmony
could be
together.
more horrific if you wanted to be. And Israel, I find every day becomes more horrific than I ever thought they could be. Running over people, wrapping people up and having a tank run over them while they film it at Al Jazeera.
So I appreciate your comments, and I think we're done, and thank you for speaking.
You wanted somebody from the community. You asked for it during your meetings, and so I came down when there were less of a ruckus and less of a chance of being killed.
No, sir, bold statements are great at the podium. No one's that I'm aware of has threatened to kill anybody in town.
No, I
Especially,
agree.
so let's not make bold statements, it's just inappropriate, all it does is inflame us even more.
Yeah,
So
but
we're talking civilly, I appreciate your opinion, it does need to come down, we are taking it down. It'll be imperfect for everybody on both sides, that's just the nature of the beast. And it's terrible, no matter which way you look at it, what's happening in Israel and Gaza. Nothing that we're gonna do here is gonna change that, but that flag is coming down for the right or wrong reasons, and that's where we are. So I do thank you for coming.
Thank you very
Right,
much.
do it the Jewish way.
Open a public hearing now. Thank you very much. Just hang on a second. Is there anyone online for public comment?
We have one hand raised.
Okay, please unmute yourself and state your name and your address and the town you live in. Thank you, sir. Someone else is up for public comment. Okay.
Hello, my name is Ron Steinverzel. I live in Newcastle. I'm here, however, as a attorney this evening. Steinverzel and Levy, I apologize if you can see me. I'd like to shield my camera because I'm traveling today, and I'm in the back of the car. I apologize. I'm here on behalf of Maureen Flaherty and Rick Rogers, who live on Overlook Road in Ossining. I was going to, I want to talk about section 65 of the town code. I have been here before and asked that this be reconsidered. I'm sure your council has advised you that the Article 78 statute of limitations runs next month. As both an attorney and taxpayer, I have and a human, I have no interest in suing anyone. I have no interest in suing the town I live in, but I do have an interest in making things right. And I need to ask if anything has been accomplished on amending section 65 to protect personal property rights since last I came before this board.
So just so people understand, this is the law regarding filming and videoing on private residential property. Yeah, we told you that we would take a look at that law and see if there were any aspects of it that would require amendments. And we will be doing that after the spring break. Is that your question?
Yes, well, regrettably, contemporaneously with the violation that was issued to my client and the dismissal of that, the now seemingly unusual dismissal of that entire violation, and the lightning fast speed with which the town amended an obscure law, having not addressed that law at any time in recent years, places my client and every resident of Newcastle in jeopardy. And you just confirmed for me that unless I bring an Article 70 or somebody brings an Article 78 proceeding, the people of Newcastle will be left with nothing but a lobbying effort with which to reestablish their own personal property rights that this town took away in a really reckless manner. And I want to juxtapose a few things. First of all, I've been in this town for, July will be 20 years. My wife, a half a century. Many years ago, I spent a lot of my firm's time and money on a pro bono basis on behalf of this town, begging and pleading for a decade. And filing, I believe, 3 different actions against my own town, all of which lost, but no war is won with a single battle. And I spent 10 years begging and pleading this town to not approve the UWMS religious facility on Pines Bridge Road for environmental reasons. I'm an environmental scientist by education. I begged and pleaded and showed statutory county reasons why that property could never be built. And the town did not want to listen to that, and for a decade engaged in discourse that brought out the most vituperative positions of neighbors against one another, that brought out the very kind of thing I just heard from the person who presented, who makes my blood curdle from the hatred I feel in his words. And I remember once during a presentation, listening to somebody who spoke up in the post 9/11 world, making horrible assaults against the Muslim people, ignorant assaults against the Muslim people. And I had to spend a few of my precious minutes saying how when I go to the courthouse at 111 Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard in White Plains, the New York State Supreme Courthouse, I walk past every time a statue of him, which reminds everyone that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And this board worked so hard to avoid offending anyone that it is.
Sir, I'm not understanding.
I cannot reconcile the conversation about the leaf blower penalty, where people weren't ready to go from $250 to $500 for using a leaf blower because of enforcement concerns and because he thought $500 would be excessive. And yet this board, in lightning fast speed, changed a law, an obscure law, that, as I reminded this board last time I spoke, if you have ever taken a photo of an article of your clothing or a possession to sell on Craigslist or eBay, you are now subject to a $1,000 per day violation and, oh yes, up to 15 days in jail. That's what your law has done.
Okay, so I don't want people to be alarmed, that is incorrect. Okay, that is incorrect. Our lawyer is shaking his head, I don't want anyone to be alarmed. Sir, we don't have a 3-minute egg timer for public comment here.
I'm sorry, that is
But I would
correct,
like you
because
to
anyone-
be mindful that we have other people waiting for public comment. We have 2 public hearings.
I'm
You're
terribly
free to
sorry,
give
but
public
you just
comment.
need-
But I would like
you
to
just
be
need
considerate,
AC for-
we've talked about multiple issues here, including Martin Luther King. And I would just like you to get to the point, we wanna listen to you, and I hear that you don't like this law, we're going to look at it after spring break. Do you have anything further to tell us?
Do we lose you, Ron?
He's on mute.
He muted himself.
Apologies. The fact that you are looking at this after the passing of the statute of limitations is inviting a lawsuit that nobody wants, especially me, that nobody wants. Please don't do this again. The Martin Luther King reference was back to a decade of foolish decisions by various town boards that engaged in an application that ultimately failed for the very reason that the people were objecting to, was that they would never be able to build a big enough septic system there. And they didn't. And all that happened was a waste of town money, a waste of people's money, a galvanizing of positions against one another. It is good governance begins with people getting along. And you cannot reconcile the rights that you took away from private property owners. Do you not think is there anyone on this board who believes that I should have to get a permit? Let's just say, forget the eBay example, which I disagree with council on. Tell me how that doesn't fit. I would love to hear, but let's just say I have a friend who has started a company and wants to bring 2 people with her to my house to take some pictures of her products on my kitchen table. No one will ever know that any of this is going on. The law says because this person is going to sell those items, that I need a permit.
Ron, excuse me, we're going to take this up after spring break, we'll look at the law, okay, but at this time, we need to move on. And that's really all I can say.
Can we just also add,
Just a moment.
yeah, no, Jill, did you wanna add something too about a permit that we received?
Yeah, I just wanna let Mr. Steinwartzel know that today I received an application from Andrew Simpson for a film permit at your client's quote home property at 50 Overlook.
Quote home?
I'm gonna say it home because that's what you call it. It's the property that they own on 50 Overlook in Ossining. That I told him if he meets, I'm waiting for insurance, and we discussed payment, and it's for April 1st, and I have no reason to expect that it's not going to be granted. That's what I told
Right,
Mr.
and
Simpson.
but you have to pay to do that.
He always had to pay to do that.
You have a limited number of times. You're not sure how you can enforce a leaf blower law.
Can I just,
but you're sure that you can enforce this law?
Can I just add something, this is Dino Schroeder, counsel? We've heard from this attorney, apparently he has issues with the law. It's my position, we looked at this law, we had a public hearing on this law, it was duly noticed. Okay, I didn't hear, no one came out for this meeting when we did this local law. Okay, it was noticed, it was published, so we talked about this, it was spoken to in this public meeting. So with all due respect, if this council has any issues with it, let them raise it, let them bring it. I've heard Article 78, if that's what he wants to do, let him do it. I don't think it's up for this board tonight to engage in this. We passed the law. If council thinks it can be better, wants to submit something in writing to improve it, look, you're a legislative board. You can always look at it and redo it again if you want, if you think. And I've been doing this 30 years. Sometimes local laws work. Sometimes you have to redraft it because in practice it may not work, or sometimes you have to tweak it. So this board tweaked the law. Okay, that was problematic. We fixed what we believe was an issue in this law, and they passed it after duly noticed public hearing and a duly noticed and like I said, duly held public hearing before this board. So I'm hearing threats of litigation, you wanna bring 78, fine, bring it. But I think we should move on at this point, your board acted.
I would like,
We have time to move on at this point, Lena, can we move on?
I would like
We're
one
going to move on
chance
from this,
I would just like one chance to say one thing, please. Please.
well, you have been, so go ahead and let's finish up.
You know, I have been very respectful, and I don't feel like this board, who is my board, is being respectful to me. But let me just say this, I'm sorry that council, I'm sorry that your interpretation of what I said was a threat. Mine was a plea. As a citizen of this town and an attorney who has pro bono represented its people, mine was a plea to not do this again. Please, don't do this again. And I think you're right. I think I should have submitted something in writing. And you know what? I did. And in response to my detailed letter explaining what the issues with the prior law was, this board duly noticed in lightning fast speed, 6 weeks following my letter. Never has the board moved this quickly. 6 weeks following my letter, took action, amended the law directly in contravention of the substance of my letter. So council, I thank you for highlighting that on the record. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Well, I don't wanna make Ron, if you're still, oh, he's gone. But I just wanna say, because there's there's an assertion or an allegation that there was something specifically tied to his client's property. I don't think I had any conversation with the town prosecutors dismissing the case, if that's ultimately when that happened or how it was done. Ron did reach out to me and I advised Jill, I advised her counsel at the time, there was a letter that was shared with at the time. There is no correlation of anything other than a resident had an issue, meaning the resident of that particular address. The case was dismissed. Ron brought that to my attention. Again, I have no recollection whatsoever of speaking to the town prosecutor. It was put on the agenda. I believe at some point the neighbor may have responded at some point while it was a public public comment.
Yep.
You know, I will say to Ron that he reached out to me and I probably 100% I feel responsible. I should have let him know that we were discussing this. I certainly had no conversation with the neighbor. But it wasn't lightning speed for any other reason that it was brought to my attention and we moved forward on it. So for anyone to assume there was something nefarious, there was nothing nefarious. But if it needs to be addressed further, we said we would, and I'm not aware of the statute of limitations on the Article 78, and certainly was not aware of that until you even brought it up. But there's nothing nefarious here. If it needs to be fixed, it needs to be fixed, and we did this with council.
I'll just echo, when I first started here, when it was last fall, it was one of the first items on my plate, so it didn't happen in light speed. We actually worked on this. It was one of the first things that I discussed with town administration when I first ate here was we have to look at the film law, and I looked at it, we reviewed it, we went back and forth with it, so I agree with you, Councilman Salon, that yes, this didn't happen overnight, it happened over the course actually of months. So I just want for the record that noted.
And just so people understand, there's significant filming activity in a residential neighborhood.
And we received complaints
Many
from the
complaints.
residents that live in
Right,
that
so
area.
this was a
It was
residential
disruptive and
Right.
impacting their quality of life, and the resident with that address is granted a certain number of days to be allowed. Jill mentioned you're allowed to film a certain number of days. After that,
You can get a waiver, which his client did.
and is currently asking for
Regardless of who did
Right,
what and
well-
when, that's not the issue. The issue is if the law needs to be changed, it needs to be changed. The statute needs to be amended.
Yeah, I mean, I venture to say we're all homeowners and wanna
So
make sure that we're not taking our own rights away, so if it needs to be revisited, we should.
And like I said, you have the power to do that, sometimes laws, and when you have them enacted and you actually in practice, sometimes things be tweaked. It happens in land use all the time, where you think you enact certain bulk regulations that may make sense, but then in practice, as applications come in, you realize, well, you know what, we have to change that because it's not really working out the way we thought it would. And it gets changed, so that does happen. So as I said, if this particular individual has something he wants to change, put it in, your board is a legislative body, we can consider it, you can direct me to look at the law, and that's what we can do. But again, his was a plea, I took it as a threat, that's what I'm saying, if he's gonna do that, go that route, again, let him go that route. But I at the same time, doesn't preclude you all from taking in comments, if you want to revisit it, you can do that as well.
Okay, thank you, Lino. Okay,
You
we're
know,
gonna
one last thing I wanna add, I wanna look back because I made a statement about not having any conversations. I think Ron may have, I think I may have been on emails with Stu Miller, our town prosecutor. But regardless, this was not done for anything, there was no nefarious anything, so but I'll look back at my emails. I may have been on emails with Stu.
Alright, well, we'll move on to the next public comment. Who was next? Rob?
That's me, can you hear me?
Okay, yes, nevertheless, identify yourself, and
This is Rob Fleischer from Oak Hill Road in Chappaqua. That was very entertaining, I have no idea what he was talking about, but it was entertaining to listen to. In either case, I'm sure you guys will resolve that the right way. But just to go back, is Chief Carroll still there?
yes, he's here.
I appreciate that. I can't see him on the window, but I think he's still there. So just to go over the math again of the days, just so I was trying to write down before, but I wasn't fast enough. If I take 365 days in a year, and I have 180 to 185 school days, 102 weekend days, 104 weekend days, 24 vacation days, there was something else as part of that equation that tied into, I think he said 19 days of the town. But I missed that part. That's the part that I couldn't follow.
Sure, my officers work 227 8-hour and 25-minute days. Subtract the 185 that they're at the school, it ends up being 42. A senior patrolman works gets 24 vacation days and 5 personal days, which brings it down to the amount of days the town is getting from that officer. It's 13, but I think 15 is a more realistic number, because if they take a couple of days off during the school year, we'll get them back over the summer. For example, one of the officers took vacation during the school district year, so we're getting that officer at this point during the summer for 19 days.
Right, and I wanna make sure this is not a criticism of any of the officers or the policies, I don't want it to be interpreted by that way at all. So, but the 227, the days between 227 and 365, that's just a matter of how police contracts are structured?
That's correct.
Okay. That's all I wanted, that's the part that I wasn't familiar with. Thank you very much.
Okay, wait, but there were training days as well, right? Did you cover that?
227 encompasses that, the extra 25, minutes actually adds up to about 13 days a year, which is very consistent with the police department schedule throughout the county, 240 days. And that's also based upon the rotation and the taxing on the body and, police contracts in general.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Jump back in.
Thank you very much, Chief Carroll.
I apologize.
Good night.
I just want to jump back in to make sure the record is clear. I was on CC'd initially, I think back in September of 2023. So to be clear, I misstated that I didn't have any conversations, but I don't recall any conversations in person, but I am on emails. But I will look back to see if I did.
Okay.
We have another.
All right. Okay, next we have Scott Breitbart. Please unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you very much. Scott Breitbart, 7 Club Way, Mount Kisco, which is in the hamlet of Chappaqua. It sounded, I've been in town for 36 years, so I know a bunch of people here, and it sounded as if the board may be coming to the conclusion that the town is in favor of school resource officers. That may be true, but I know I and my family are against them, and the people I've spoken to are against them. So I think unless the town has done a survey with ministers planning on doing one, I'm not sure that the board should assume that the town is in favor of more school resource officers.
Scott, I just want to be very careful here, and I started the discussion by saying that the town is absolutely not opining on whether the schools should have SROs. I can tell you, I was on the school board and I'm very sensitive to that. I don't think that the town board should interfere in the school board's decision-making process. They have sent people to us to explain the fee structure. So that is absolutely all that we did today. We explained what the costs were to the town. And the reason you might think that is because we talked about incremental benefits of the extra officers, and that's because we're not charging CCSD 100% of the cost. So when there are more officers on balance, there is some sort of incremental advantage to the town to use them to cover for what would be overtime. The more officers there are, the more diminishing returns there are to the town. So that was the context of that conversation. I'm not sure what gave the impression that we're opining on whether the schools should have or should not have, but that is certainly not the intention. And I was concerned that we would run into that sort of confusion.
Thank you for the explanation. That's what I understood, and I wasn't suggesting that the board was opining, rather that it sounded like the board might be putting itself in a position to start looking to hire people before the school board vote came in, or the school board final decision was made.
No, we would only do that if the school board requests and enters into a contract with the town, a mutually agreeable contract. I don't wanna speak for them, I'd venture to say I'd be surprised that they would enter into a contract before they know they'd have the money to do it. So therefore, I would strongly suggest that that would happen after the budget vote. But again, you know, I don't wanna speak for them.
I think you dropped
What, okay. I think you dropped off by accident, but anyway, I'm sure you could hear me. But I just wanna be careful about what is the school district's prerogative and what we do. So I'm not going to tell them when to approach us and when not to, that is up to them. Yeah. Okay, he came back. Yeah, Scott.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't realize that my ability with technology is as poor as it is.
Yeah, that's okay.
No, I'm fine, I appreciate your explanation. I didn't have anything else to add.
Okay, all right, thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
No other hands are raised online.
There's a Robbie.
So we have our fire marshal and Bob Cioli, our town engineer, along with Tom DePaul, and they're here for our public hearings that we're gonna start.
Oh, okay, okay, good. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, so I'd like to open our first public hearing. May I have a motion to open a public hearing on a local law to amend the provisions of chapter 48, the building construction and fire prevention, and chapter 68, fire prevention law. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the public hearing is now open. And let's see, who wants to start?
I can give it a shot.
Okay, go ahead, Lino.
Sure. So first of all, I wanna thank Tom DePoli and Robbie Bancroft for helping us, with this local law. This is a law to amend chapter 48, which is building construction, and 68, fire prevention. The purpose of this law is to provide more safety measures, particularly in the light of homes that have EV vehicles and batteries. So what this law does, from a high level, it provides, for example, it defines electric vehicles, and for new construction, I'll just give them the highlights. It requires that you have fire sprinklers in the house for new construction. We're not talking about existing structures. If it's an existing structure, if you're exceeding the FAR by 50% of your then you have to put in fire sprinklers to account for this. The other thing we did was, at least for fire safety, we're gonna require placarding for homes that have EV chargers and EV vehicles, so that'll be signing, that'll be put up on the sides of homes to let fire department, anyone know, EMS, that there is a charging apparatus in the homes. So that's in essence what we did with this local law. We kind of just added definitions of EVs and fire sprinklers when they need to be installed. And with respect to chapter 68, we specifically state that any new home or new garage that contains an EV or a charger after the effective date of this law, assuming it gets passed, is gonna require some type of fire sprinkler suppression system. So Tom, if you have anything else, Tom DePoli, our building inspector, if you wanna add to any of that?
Currently, we require all new homes to have sprinkler systems. We're just adding the fact that the garages will themselves have a sprinkler system. Just to give additional coverage, cause that would be the source of the fire if the electric vehicle goes up, or a scooter or other device in the garage.
Right, okay. All right, any other comments, Bob, Robbie? Well, okay, at this time, is there anyone to come up to make a public comment on this public hearing? No one in person, is there anyone online?
No hands are raised.
Okay, seeing none,
You wanna leave it open for written comment?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would.
okay.
So could we hold it open for written comment on, our next meeting is actually April 9th. So we've got a holiday week coming up next week. So do we wanna hold it open for until the 12th, and we would put it back on the agenda on for the 16th.
Did you wanna close public hearing, just leave it
Yeah.
open for it? Yeah, okay.
Yes, so we would close the public hearing, leave it open for written comments to Friday, April 12th, close of business.
Close of business usually like noon.
Okay, noon
You
is
want-
fine, noon is fine, we're giving plenty of time. Let's do noon on April 12th, that's a good idea, okay? Noon on April 12th. And it'll be back on the agenda for 4/16.
Okay, so may I have a motion? So Lino, remind me again, how do I close this portion and leave it open?
So I would just entertain a motion to close the public hearing, but leave written comments open until April 12th at
Well,
12.
technically, the written portion is not considered public comment,
No,
since we're
but it's written
closing
comment,
public.
right, you're closing the public hearing portion of it, which
Public hearing,
yeah, the
right,
public
got it.
hearing, but you're leaving it open to entertain written comments up until it was
Okay.
April 12th, Jill? April 12th at noon, so that would be the motion.
Okay,
So
all right. Well, no, Lino cannot make.
Oh,
They're
Hallie
not-
made the motion, but
Okay, so you wanna say what the motion is?
I move to close the public hearing and keep written comments open until April 12th at noon.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. And now I'd like to entertain a motion to open the public hearing on the local law to amend the provisions of chapter 108A on stormwater management and erosion and sediment control.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
I'll take this one too.
do you wanna take, go ahead, Lino.
Sure. So this is a local law amending chapter 108, and we also have Bob Scioli, who was also instrumental in helping me with this as well. Chapter 108, stormwater management and erosion sediment control. This law is in essence, one of the things that when I first started here in Newcastle was the, stormwater is it's a big deal here, and particularly when it came to projects where work was being done. And what was happening was you would have like projects, I wanna say segmented to avoid certain stormwater mitigation requirements that were being done. So your local law, your law before had, I think it was 500 square feet of disturbance. But what we've done is we've actually changed it to a scale with respect to properties located in the quarter, R14A district, half acre, 1 acre, 2 acres. So if you're gonna be disturbing, like for example, in a quarter acre, 250 square feet of new impervious area, you're gonna have to comply and do some stormwater mitigation. And what this law also does, it gives a 3-year look back. So if you apply for a building permit with respect to let's say a project at your home that involves impervious surface, we can go back and look 3 years from the date of that permit to make sure you're in compliance with this law. So you didn't actually, okay, well, I'm gonna build, let's say, a deck 1 year, or I'm gonna add a shed another. It just adds up to impervious surface to try to get away from the stormwater mitigation requirements. So that's what this law does. It actually, it's more stringent than what you would normally require, but it's in line with other communities in terms of stormwater. So Bob, I don't know if you want to add anything, Bob Scioli?
Thank you, Gino. Good evening, town board members. Basically, the old law that we once had, that was developed in April of 2007, was working off of 1,000 square feet. That was across all the zoning districts and applied to commercial properties as well. But I guess over the years, there's been some instances, especially some of the smaller properties, where they did do some impervious surfaces, but it did not trip the wires, and we had some stormwater concerns and complaints from downstream properties nonetheless. So what we're trying to do here is to anticipate that in the future as well, and just bump it down a little bit to 250 for the quarter, 500 for the half, 1,000 for the one, which it used to be across all boards, and make the 2 acres 2,000 square feet, which by the way happens to be about 2.3% of each lot size area, if it's exactly those areas in the zoning district. So I think it's going to help with water quality. We have a very stringent DEC attributes we have to report to, because keep in mind, probably about 70% of this town is located in the East Hudson watershed and the phosphorus restricted area, which requires additional stormwater measures, especially for water quality. So I think it's certainly going to help and improve the water quality and downstream flooding attributed to other properties, especially in the smaller lots.
Okay.
And I just wanna know for the record too, we did receive correspondence on this local law from Datum Architecture, Planning and Construction, offering some modifications to the law. And what I can do, again, like you left the other public hearing open for written comment, I can take these comments and go over with Bob Cioli and see if there's anything here that's worthwhile that we may wanna tweak.
Well, we're not gonna close this hearing tonight.
No, we're actually.
We're gonna keep it open for another opportunity for
Yeah,
residents to be heard.
we are gonna keep this open.
Yeah, cause I think we will have
Yeah, it's interesting, one of the things that after talking to Bob Cioli, our town engineer this afternoon, one of the things that's noted in the letter was a recommendation that perhaps we could look at Harrison and see what their law looks like, which Bob and I will do. He's trying to explain it to me, but I'm not an engineer, so it's gonna take me a little bit longer.
Right, right.
But one of the things that he did raise as a differential, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, is that Newcastle 70% within the east of Hudson, Harrison is 7% within the east of Hudson.
It's a big
So
difference. I mean, it's the
there
apples
is
to
a
oranges.
difference insofar as the stringent regulations that we are subject to. But what I would like to do is I don't know if there's other people that wanna speak on this tonight that are here, but certainly we would hold it open till we will continue the public hearing to the 12th to allow an opportunity for this architect to come in. He was, very.
If a local resident reached out
Yes.
to me
No,
and also sent an email to the town, so he should have an opportunity. He's just unavailable, unfortunately.
Yeah, no problem.
And just for the record, I don't know if I
He
neglected
reached out
to
to
say,
me as well.
the letter is dated, this is from Datum from March 26, 2024 is when we received this letter, so again, we'll take a look at it and see if there's anything in here that is, something that we can include in the existing draft.
Okay,
I
thank you.
thought what was compelling about the letter was the concern for residents with quarter acre and half acre properties and that it would be too financially onerous on them. So I just wanna hear about that.
Yeah, it's interesting because, and Bob can speak to this, the complaints that the town has received have to do with quarter acre properties
Right.
where
That's the most.
significant amounts of impervious surfaces are installed. And they never trip the stormwater requirements because it's so large, it's the same as if it's, half acre or, acre or 2 acre. And so quarter acre doesn't, and there have been some significant negative effects to neighboring properties that we were just powerless to intervene on.
Yeah,
because
there are
of the
many
current
different
state.
sides to
Interesting.
to the story. There were significant flooding impacts that some people experienced, and so
Right, but
that's
I
not,
did
but we need to
sort of-
hear both
I guess,
sides.
Given the house that I live in, I was struck by the reference to, sort of old homes on such small properties and how, sometimes you need to make changes to the property to make it livable, and so I just, for people who live on the smallest properties in town, I just wanna take care not to make things too difficult for them to make changes while keeping in mind that there could be an impact on neighbors.
I mean, there is a balancing, I will tell you, just doing land use, but there's also the other side of that coin too, where you have those smaller properties because you don't have enough room, so the more impervious you put on there, it's actually consequences become worse, especially for those who are downstream and where the water's gonna go somewhere, and when you add a small property like that, you're not required to do any mitigation at times, so and when you take that, and again, not everyone does this, but I'm saying those offenders who do it, they'll chip away at it, right? So they'll put it in a patio, then they'll put in a deck, and then or they'll put in another addition. But all the while the water has to go somewhere, right? And at least what this local law does, yes, it may make it a little bit more expensive, if you will, for mitigation, but on the backside of it, it does help with the prevention of flooding and stormwater when it rains, especially when you have all that impervious surface on a smaller lot, so
Right, I
that's kind of the balance.
We don't wanna say that because you have a smaller lot that you can cause flooding in your neighbor's lot. That's really what we're trying to avoid. Yeah. But anyway, this is public comment. So I would invite anyone at this time to come up for public comment. Please come up to the microphone, state your name and the street and town you reside in.
Hi, my name is Su Chin Chang and I live in 27 Pineview Road. This is regarding the public hearing for the stormwater. I live in the quarter acre the property and my neighbor who is behind me also a quarter acre property. And they did like the lawyer said. In 2021, they increased the impervious for under 1,000 square feet. But within half year, they want to build another under 600 feet of deck. And I want to show you since the renovation that they did, this is the flooding of my backyard. This is all the flooding. The river. So
That's significant.
You wouldn't mind
I'll
passing
pass
this?
it
We'll pass it, yeah, we'll pass it.
yeah, and I want to show all the board.
Just for the record, can I get a copy of that, just let
yeah,
them,
we're going to
let us
pass
know what
this,
we're handing in, so. let me address it there.
I'm not against to anyone who want to renovate the size of the house, but should not go the stormwater to the neighbor. And I live here for almost 20 years. I never had the flooding issue before that. That's why I want to come here, bring up my
So
concern.
this was, and I'm sorry if I missed that, was this compliant with the current law or it just
Yes.
wasn't, and it just, even with the current law, it really destroyed your property, your home?
Yeah.
Because we didn't,
You have triggers for this. There were-
we didn't do a cumulative.
Right.
So the project gets broken up so that
Right,
it
explained before, but I was
Yeah.
just making sure this was compliant,
yes.
but unfortunately, the ramification was pretty serious to you.
So what did the neighboring property put in? What was it was impervious,
They on top of next to the current building, they increase less than 1,000 square feet.
A brand new house.
The brand new house.
okay, gotcha, okay.
In the quarter acre yard.
Curious,
And
what was his response or her response?
my neighbor?
Yeah.
I did ask the builder and the owner. The builder told me that they have the permission.
And that was it, I don't need to mitigate your problem.
And now the property next to it is a new house is being built. Can this law help with this situation?
Yeah, well,
I mean,
if
what's
this law was in
current,
place, they wouldn't be able to do.
Right, but with the
But there's a retroactive
three-year
look back.
look back,
And well, it wouldn't apply if they were doing this work now, let's say the law was enacted, and they were doing this, they would have to go back, I mean, you could go back 3 years and look to make sure they were in compliance in terms of whatever cumulative impacts they were doing. So right now, you don't have this on the books, so this particular property, whoever was doing it, they weren't required to do stormwater mitigation.
right, but once this is on the books, would she have a recourse?
Well, it's gonna apply to new construction, right? So if this particular neighbor does this again, they're gonna have to get a permit for it and it's gonna start counting from the day of that building permit, right? So whatever's new, cause again, the law is not in place, there's no retroactivity now today. It would apply when the law is enacted, so
Right, but if it's enacted in 2 months from now,
then, right, but it would go to the building permit, yeah, so technically if they pulled a building permit within that time, you know, we have to make the argument that we can look back at that building permit.
and is there any recourse after the fact, even if it's up to code when it's being built, is there any recourse that you're damaging your neighbor's property?
Other than a private dispute between the neighbors, it would be between the two neighbors on that issue.
So,
Unless, I mean, we would get involved if we actually approved the stormwater and there was an issue there, then that somehow the town could be.
so there may be, but that's a private, unfortunately,
Right,
private issue.
most of the time it's a private issue. And just for the record, this particular resident handed 4 photographs.
There's more.
Oh, there's more, so we'll just.
Some are duplicates.
Not duplicate. I try to give the town board the evidence
I can
like
make
that.
copies, okay, so we can.
So there are about 13 photographs taken of the neighboring property owner. I'm just gonna summarize, showing various flooding conditions. again, from various dates, from September of 2023, April, June, May, all, this is 2022, 23. And then we have also, I guess, looks like a tax map showing the three lots.
That's the map for our
So,
area.
again, just wanna note that for the record, that is part of it for this particular public hearing.
Okay, thank you, Lena.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I have a question, the new lot that's being
Okay, so if anyone else would like to come up, please state your name and
Sitting so long, I can't walk.
please state your name
Linda Fagaccio.
and the street and town you live in.
29 Pineview Road. I live next to Sue. So the new property that's being built behind us, that also wouldn't have this new rule.
Not yet, cause it's not enacted yet.
But it could be if it's enacted.
If we enact it and the building permit is applied for, okay, we can, I have to read this again, but we can go back and take a look within 3 years of the building permit, but if they pull a building permit for work
Yeah.
that was approved, if it was today, whatever work is approved is not subject to this law yet.
Okay.
But if the law is enacted and they come back and wanna do additional work, they would have to pull a building permit, and then this does kick in, and that gives us the look back. Okay, but for whatever was done prior to this law in terms of a building permit, whatever that building permit says, as long as they build in accordance with that, they're okay. If they violate that building permit,
Yeah, well, I think
Building
they're
stuff will
probably
go out and-
pretty close to building, so that's what we were here for. Okay.
Okay.
Alright, thanks.
All right, thank you. Anyone online for public comment? We don't see anyone online. Okay, so we're going to leave the public hearing open until the 12th?
Wait
Not
a
on
second, I'm
the
sorry, it's
16th?
continued, I apologize, it's continued until the
I
ninth.
mean, not the 12th.
Yes,
So I would just take a motion to
the ninth, because
continue.
that's our next
Board
town board meeting, right.
so just make a motion to continue this public hearing
Yep.
to April 9th.
So moved.
Okay, do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Is that Tino, is that all right if I do that?
I believe it's Gino, thank you.
Hey, good night, everyone.
Good night,
Good
good
night.
night, alright. I didn't have the energy to, someone repeat it, okay. Okay. Alright, so we are up to our consent agenda. Let's see, do we have any other resolutions?
We have a couple of changes on the consent agenda,
We're taking off 10 and 18,
I believe that's correct.
the cameras and the
Yep.
public hearing on the
Yes.
leaf blowers.
Did we have anything in addition, Christina?
No,
add?
nothing additional.
Okay. We have the rec, where, the civic rec,
That's in the consent agenda, number 14.
great, thank you.
We're starting right to left this time.
You wanna start right to left?
We're a little
Okay.
cool over on this side, we're tired of being last of all.
Yeah, I did that last time when you weren't here.
Oh, figures.
But we could still, we could do it. Okay.
But you have to do this.
Alright, we're starting from the right. Go ahead.
Oh.
Okay, go ahead, Jen.
Okay, I move to adopt the items 1 through 9 and 11 through 17 as listed on the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Oh, okay. I move to retroactively approve the payment of claims in the amount of $404,960.50 listed on the summary AP check register detail voucher detail report dated March 21st of this year. Checks were printed and distributed to claimant listed on Thursday, March 21st, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I move to authorize the hiring of Carly Hannafin for the position of student intern within the town clerk's department for a period of 6 weeks for a lump sum of $1,500 effective May 6th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Holly?
I move to authorize the appointment of Holly Mouskov-Dweck as a member of the Holocaust and Human Rights Committee for a term of 2 years effective April 1st, 2024 through March 31st, 2026.
All in favor?
So we need a second.
Second.
I'm sorry.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I just have one thing, please?
Yes.
I'd just like to announce that this is Tiffany's last town board meeting. Tiffany I wish her much congratulations and much good luck. She is leaving to accept a position with Metro North, sorry, in the HR.
Oh, she's shaking her
No,
head.
not Metro, where are you working?
MTA.
MTA, I was so
MTA.
close. MTA in the HR department, and we're gonna miss her and we wish her well.
Oh,
Absolutely.
congratulations, that's a
You will
great,
be
that's a
missed.
great move and we will miss you and best of luck to you.
Their gain,
Yeah,
Yeah,
our loss.
that's for sure.
okay,
Anyway.
okay.
You can always come back for public comment.
You can always come back, that's right.
What are you gonna do Tuesday nights, huh? What are you gonna do?
Oh, well, I hate to adjourn now.
I know.
No, on that note.
I move to adjourn.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned, thank you, everybody, thank you.